thumbs up there, no? One. बोलो. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. We at CTS find immense pleasure to invite you to our sixth series of Samvad Shrinkala, Creative Assemblage, that was initiated yesterday. For those who joined us recently, Samvad Shrinkala was a platform conceptualized during the first lockdown towards opening a dialogue across lateral streams of design that could generate a more collaborative space of exchange. Having received an overwhelming response and support from all of you, we curated the current series around the idea of an assemblage that would trigger avenues of inclusive and creative thought processes. On day one of Samvad series, which was yesterday, we had architect Sandeep Shikre, who gave us an enlightening lecture, Power of Design, in which he spoke about his experiences and his personal journey through architecture. We proceed with the series with another intriguing topic by our guest speaker for the day, Mr. Chetan Sharma. So, Let us begin with a brief introduction of him.
Our speaker for the day, Mr. Chetan Sharma, is an animator, filmmaker, writer, designer, voice artist, illustrator, singer, and has been doodling and drawing since he can remember. Along with Gayatri Rao, he's the co-founder and director of Animagic India, an award-winning design and animation studio that completed 25 years in 2022. He was a recipient of 2005 National Award as the best animator from President APJ Abdul Kalam for his work in the acclaimed short film Raju and I in 2003. Mr. Chetan has won 15 national and international awards, including the UNICEF Campania Prize at Cartoons by the Bay, Italy, the Alan Fortuna Foundation Humanitarian Award at the Long Island Film Festival, ASIFA India's Award of Excellence in 2004, and the Audience Choice Award, Best Short Film Award at the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles in 2005. His other award-winning work includes 8 short animated films and 2 animated feature films made in collaboration with Amar Chitra Katha Comics, Cartoon Network, Tripura, and Swami Ayyappan. He has contributed significantly to commercial ad work line, such as the design and storyboarding of the Cannes Silver, Happy Dent, and Xbox 360 TV commercials, and visualization and title design for Bollywood films like Mission Kashmir and Eklavya. Over the years, he has illustrated over 24 children's books. One of these made it to the prestigious Tata Trust Prayag Honor List of 2021. His latest book, Shorekeepers, Mangroves of Mumbai, was released by the Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra last month on International Mangrove Day and marked his debut as a book writer. Mr. Chetan conducts workshops and master classes in all aspects of storytelling, designing, and creating animation films for industry associations like TASI and ASIFA, for institutions like IDC, IIT Mumbai, IIT Roorkee, Avid Learning, the Kala Ghoda Art Fest, and for educational behemoths like Arena Animation and MAAC. His workshops in starting to draw, Sketching Ki Pathshala, can get even those who have never drawn to sketch and scribble with abandon. With no further delay, I request Mr. Chetan Sharma to begin with his presentation on being all you can be, living a creative life in a hectic world. Before we invite our guest speaker for the day to take over the stage, we request all in the audience to kindly turn their mobile phones on silent mode.
Okay, that introduction sounds very impressive even when I'm hearing it. But I've lived through it and it's a lot of work. And somehow one has come to the other side of it and still smiling. So then maybe I'm somewhat qualified to give today's talk. It has all been a creative journey. And when I was first asked to even come a few months back and talk to architecture students, I was like, architecture students, अभी हम तो कार्टून ठहरे. So architecture वालों के साथ क्या करेंगे? Like वो तो बड़े serious type के लोग होते हैं. But I'll tell you that my mentor, the person that is responsible for me standing here today, in 1994, he saw some spark in me. I was a young kid at that time, I was 15. And he thought that maybe this kid has got some potential, and he took me in. And this person is, he's a sort of an icon himself. He's been a cartoonist, he's been an animator, and he was also an architect. So he worked with B.V. Doshi, and he also, I think, talks to a lot of architectural schools. Students are always surrounding him. He's a great master. His name is Mr. Ajit Rao. So look him up when you can. And in the time that he was involved in animation, I was lucky enough to be spotted by him, so to speak. And because 15-year-old people are sometimes, even though they are very excitable and they are like, oh, look, they have a lot of energy and all, but it can often be very defocused energy, you know. So it goes all over the place. ये भी करना है, वो भी करना है, ये भी करना है, वो भी करना है. So I remember when I joined college, I went to St. Xavier's, Dhobi Talao. In the very first month, I was part of some 20 organizations, 20 groups within college, within the first month. And they were all interests that I had, and I was so excited to be part of it. But I realized that you need to focus on what you can really contribute to. And I was already in animation then, so eventually almost all of it went out of the window, and I focused only on animation. And I think that the reason and the result of focusing on animation is also why I am standing here today. And animation has given me a lot, and I'll share some of the material with you. And it has allowed me to lead a life where I can be one of those creative people, you know. अरे वो तो creative हैं. मुझे तो लोग ये भी बोलते हैं आपको देख के लगता है कि आप creative हैं. It's probably because of hair or whatever. But आपको देख के sir, even on the road, like people will stop me and always say आप क्या कुछ गाते वाते हैं, बजाते हैं, क्या करते हैं, आप चाय भी पीते हैं, तबला भी बजाते हैं, क्या करते क्या हैं, आप आर्टिस्ट हैं, ड्राइंग करते हैं, कुछ ना कुछ एक अंदाज़ा लोगों को हो जाता है कि but yeah, so I'm living the life, okay? So I'm living what I am here to speak about, and I would really appreciate if this is actually a samvad of sorts, where we actually have a dialogue. एक संभाषण का भी concept है यहाँ पर और एक संवाद का भी concept है. I hope it is a bit of both. The संभाषण will be only because I'll give you some background of where I come from, because you may not be familiar with a lot of the work that I've done. So I'll just show you a bit of stuff. I'll give you a little rundown of my mota journey. And then it will be great if you have any kind of questions to do with following your passions or drawing, like specific stuff like that, or general stuff, anything, okay? And I'll answer them to the best of my ability, because I'm still searching for things, right? It is a journey of self-discovery, and be all that you can be. The reason we put that in that thing is a creative life is not a fancy life, all right? It is a journey of self-discovery, like all work is, okay? All work is a journey of self-discovery. Every building that you'll make, every conversation you have is a journey of self-discovery, okay? And if you ask yourself, what did I discover at this end of any conversation, you can probably tell what you're searching for. So even if you're talking about the latest show that you watched on Netflix, or some song or some scandal or something, it just tells you a little bit more about yourself if you look back into it. So it's a very interesting journey if you are interested in yourself, which I hope you are, and your questions can be about yourself, and I'll answer them from my perspective, because I am nothing special per se. I've just worked very hard, and in what? And I've been very blessed to understand what I'm learning most of the time. So because of that, it's a more self-aware kind of a journey. So I think that that'll probably make it more interesting. Otherwise, I can yabber about my work for 2-3 days also. You all will not end up, maybe all of you all will be gone, I'll be still talking. Because एक बार वो हम उस धुंधी में चले जाते हैं तो फिर रोकना मुश्किल है हमको. So आप लोग बिंदास रोकिए, and I would encourage all the profs and all that also to have any conversation that we can have, any dialogue that we can have. And I'm sure if somebody asks a question, always be helpful to somebody else. That's what I've always found. So if that reel is ready, then we'll play that. So this will give you an idea of the work that we have done. So this is only the work of my studio, Animagic, which has, like you heard, completed 25 years in May this year. And so over the last 25 years, we've done everything possible around the field of animation and illustration. So we've done children's books, we've done this, we've done that, done storyboards, we've done pre-production, visual design. You'll see bits of everything here in this reel, okay? So watch it carefully, because this could give you some questions to ask as well, right? Or I may ask you questions. That is also possible. So yeah, so let's watch the Animagic reel. Light white बंद कर दो, थोड़ा दिखाई देगा. sound. Rewind कर लो, बिना sound के क्या मजा आता है?
हिरण्यवर्णाय हिरण्यरूपाय हिरण्यपतये अम्बिकापतय उमापतये पशुपतये नमो नमः। ॐ नमो हिरण्यवाहवे हिरण्यवर्णाय हिरण्यरूपाय हिरण्यपतये अम्बिकापतय उमापतये पशुपतये नमो ॐ नमो हिरण्यवाहवे हिरण्यवर्णाय हिरण्यरूपाय हिरण्यपतये अम्बिकापतये उमापतये पशुपतये नमो I went looking for my friend Baju. But what is this I find? So many Rajus. All around. What was the difference between them and my friend? Was I not Raju to someone else?
चिलकुट मकड़ी चिलकुट आटा छुपाया सो निखार लाटा। बोल ये कौन सा जीव है?
It is all that is.
I just realized that in the Tripura trailer, Shivji just said to Maya, be an architect for the betterment of the entire universe. So I was like, oh, क्या बात है? Architecture college में आके शिवजी ने कहा, be an architect for the betterment of the entire universe. But I think, and I realized that that film is about an architect, so maybe. So I think that a lot of the stuff that we do can easily be just work for hire, and can easily be stuff that we do to earn money and to just pay EMIs and whatnot, which as you will grow older, you will get into that trap sooner or later. So I'm just giving it to you right now. आप में से 90% लोग EMI के चक्कर में फंसने वाले हैं कहीं ना कहीं. तो and that is a trap for a lot of people. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but it becomes a trap for a lot of people because then they are no longer able to do what they want to do. Now I'll qualify when I say what they want to do because ये मनमानी करने वाली बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ मैं. It's not that I'll do what I want to do, kind of want to do, but what their heart really desires to do is what I mean by it, and we can discuss that further also. But they often stifle creative urges. They often stifle the desire to express in interesting, in unique ways because it's not what is needed, it's not what you have time for, or you just have to basically earn a living. So it becomes it's something that I get asked often, so I think it's something that I can bring up right now because y'all are not yet in that space. And at this point in time, you can dream, and you can dream big. You can dream as big as you want. And I also want to add to that that in thinking about animation and architecture, from the earliest era of animation, that is, we're talking almost 100 years back now, 1920s, 30s, you may have heard about the Great Depression that hit America, and a lot of people were without work. I mean, cartoonists were, getting jobs as janitors, and people weren't getting any work. So at that time, a few animation studios that achieved prominence, like the Walt Disney Studios, employed a lot of artists and a lot of architects. So a lot of architects who did not get architecture work to do, but whose drawings were nice and they were interested in storytelling, because a lot of architects and people related to art in so many ways are storytellers. You may find that many of you are storytellers as well. We'll come to that at some point. And so people could unleash that aspect of themselves in the Disney studios, and that resulted in a major renaissance of Disney animation. So people, if they've watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella, किसी ने देखी है? Cinderella, Pinocchio. So if you've seen any of these films, a lot of the great work in the way those worlds are created have been done by people who were trained as architects and who expanded on that training in animation to try and really add a solid dimension to Disney storytelling, which still continues to this date, right? The designing of spaces, both in animation and for live action film, is a huge part of what we can discuss over here, because I have had the privilege of being part of live action films also. Just for a basic sort of understanding of what all we are interested in, how many people are aware of animation processes here? You can just raise your hands if you are aware of how animation films are made in general. Okay, that's cool. It's not expected. How many people are aware of filmmaking techniques? How films are made? Okay, a few tentative kind of, okay, 3, 4, okay, fine. So we have some 4, 5. How many interested in or active in theater? Actual theater, on stage theater. Okay, there are a few. Cool. I won't get into the details of anything, so please feel free to throw your hands up, even if you're interested in the slightest with it, because this is not a workshop. So I'm seeing some more hands go up. Oh, मैं भी वैसे तो करता ही हूँ theater. So yes, how many interested in music? not just listening to music, but doing something with musically. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Classical music. Okay, wow, wow. Dance. Okay, a lot more people dance. Cool. Classical dance. Okay. What else? What else? What else? How many people draw in their spare time? Doodle, as it's called. Yes. Wow, wow, wow. Chalo. Very pleasing. Very pleasing. How many people doodled yesterday? Okay. ठीक. No, because once a year is also doodling. मैं तो doodle करता ही हूँ. पिछले September में किया था मैंने. So yeah, we have this in animation also. So if I'm talking to a bunch of animators who are actually supposed to be working on storytelling and all, if I ask them, how many of you all draw? It's like, okay, yeah, we sort of draw. So sort of draw is not draw. Draw is if you have fun drawing, and it's not drawing if you are doing it for homework. Okay, it's not doodling if you are doing it for a assignment. Okay, it's doodling if you are interested in it, having fun doing it, and are doing it without anyone telling you to do so. So all of these are all areas which you would only go in if you are interested, right? But I suppose everybody hums a little bit every now and then, right? Sings, hums, bathroom mein. Yes, no? अच्छा, yes बोल रहे हैं, हाथ कोई ऊपर नहीं कर रहे हैं, कहीं गाना गाने को बोल दिया तो? नहीं, it's fun. So I'm a famous bathroom singer. So with great pride I can attest to that. But I'm also learning seriously. So I also raise my hands to all of the above. So yeah, these are also subjects we can touch upon, how these apply to making films, telling stories, illustrating books, doing animation. As I told you a little while back that I began my career when I was quite nanna-sa, and though I thought I was very smart, but now when I look at 15-year-olds, I know how nanna they are in a sense. We all think like, yo man, we are like so smart, like, you know. But we really know very little. But that's the whole fun of the process, because the whole world is open in front of us, and every day can be spent learning humongous amounts of things, right? फिर उसके बाद assimilation is the bigger challenge, and you are only able to express yourself if you assimilate, right? If you draw, for example, exactly like you did when you were 6, then you've not learnt any drawing along the way. You've not progressed, you've not practiced. But if you are making any kind of conscious work out of it, like, okay, I enjoy doing this, then it gets better, right? Anything you do, you find that after a few months you get better at it, right or no? You all get better at it, right? Okay, because if you all don't get better, then there's a problem. Okay, so I don't think that's the sort of crowd I'm dealing with. Though sometimes in one of these big animation institutions, I have often had a doubt, ये कहाँ से पकड़ के लाए हैं इनको? Because they are just blank, and they're in animation. So how people can be blank and be in animation is still beyond me. And undoubtedly उनका कुछ होता नहीं है बाद में चल के, because they think that animation is a job, which it is absolutely not. I mean, if anybody thinks they're getting into animation because we'll get a nice job and we're going to like, oh wow, we're going to be like, nahin. Animation is back-breaking work for anybody that is doing it, and it requires a lot of patience. I know I may be scaring some of you off in case you're thinking, हाँ यार मैं भी animation कर लूँगा यार. But please be scared, because it's such a lovely medium that it only deserves people who are really, really serious about it. So I would be very quite fundamentalist about it, you can say, in a way that if you're not serious, don't get into animation. Because उसमें मज़ा ही तब आता है. नहीं तो उसमें if you're just like waddling around it, उसमें मज़ा नहीं आएगा. Which I'm sure is true of anything. I mean, I'm sure it's true of architecture also. You can't beat around the bush. You want to you get hardcore with it, right? उसमें ऐसे डूबना है कि उसमें फिर तैरना आना ही है, दूसरे साइड में जाना ही है. आप वहीं पे ऐसे एक ही जगह पे हाथ पैर मार के कुछ नहीं मिलने वाला, right? So your journey is going to be exciting as young people, as mine was. I will tell you in brief. So I was apprenticing in a studio called Ram Mohan Biographics. Ram Mohan ji is called the father of Indian animation. He's no more, Padma Shri. only animator to be Padma Shri. And he was in animation since the 1960s. He worked in the films division. He made lots of award-winning films. And he had, at that time, I think the only, or rather one of the very few commercial studios which did animation. I was lucky to be part of that, thanks to Sri Ajit Rao, as I mentioned before. And he was running a program at that time, a training program, and I was lucky to be part of it. Not like the training programs you have in animation now, which cost lakhs and which really don't teach you anything. Being an artist and having trained in Sheridan in animation, he was quite serious about it. And it was like a slightly homegrown kind of a training program, and it was really lovely because you could do it in an animation studio. You know, so just imagine learning architecture in a architect's office. You know, the kind of learning that you do is completely something else, because in the conversations, in even in the scanning drawings for seniors or whatever, you learn. You know, every moment you learn. So it was a great time. So I spent 3 years there. And by the end of those 3 years, I was an assistant director on one 20-minute film, which won the UNESCO prize in 1997. So I had started off as the most junior in that team, and was by the end of it the chief animator and assistant director on that film. So that was really a steep trajectory, and I was intoxicated, you can say, you know. And part of the intoxication was that I think I may have told some of you when I met you before, that I discovered that my name means animation, you know. So किसी चीज़ को सचेत करना या उसमें चेतना भरना, उसको हम animation कहेंगे. Animation is not to make things move, you know, it is to give life to things, all right. And having discovered that, I was unstoppable, as I would put it now, because every waking hour of my day was just thinking about this. So even though I joined college and everything, I was doodling, and I was good academically, just to make it clear. But I was in college because I liked studies, right? I was not in college because I needed a job. So let's make that distinction. I was in college because I was interested in history, I was interested in literature, and I thought this is the best place to do it. I was not interested in science, not interested in cutting up frogs, not interested in numbers, which is a bad thing, now I know, after years of experience. Please make friends with numbers as soon as you can, all right? And at this age, you can do it slowly, and numbers will become your friends. Later on, they struggle with you much more, but they are super important. So numbers, important for things like budgeting, scheduling, everything, right? And one interesting truth that I have come face to face in the last few days, I was watching a very interesting series which was surprisingly made by Sansad TV called Surajya Samhita. So governance in India since the ancient times, okay? And it is made by Dr. Chandraprakash Dwivedi, who used to make a serial called Chanakya many years ago. And he's a very, very interesting man, very learned. And his work is always something to learn from and to gain from. So what do you get out of this? You basically figure out how you could run a country or run a company or run any team, any project. Requires governance, right? It requires being able to organize your resources. It requires being able to marshal all the talents together to create something, right? Whether it's a nation or an animated cartoon, right? And वेदों के काल से लेके भीष्म पितामह से लेके in all the texts they are saying that in order to make success of your ventures, you need to be very concerned with artha, right? You need to make sure that your finances are worked out, your resources are worked out, right? When we are young and as artists, we think, कुछ नहीं होता है, हम सब कर लेंगे, ये भी कर लेंगे, वो भी कर लेंगे, और हमने किया भी है. It's not that it can't be done, okay? But it doesn't make you any profits, okay? And you burn yourself like left, right, and center, which again you can do while you're young, right? And I don't consider myself old by any standards, but having done a large chunk of my work in my 20s and in my 30s as well, like it was not just a learning curve for me, right? Within my first 3 years, I was assistant director in an animation film. So I was working really hard. And we started our studio after those 3 years. So I was about, I think I just turned 19 or, yeah, I was 19 when we started our studio. So I would have been very happy to have learned some of this at that time, right? It may sound like, oh, ये तो creativity के बारे में बात करने आए थे, ये क्या है? So ये मेरा current learning है, इसलिए मैं आपके साथ immediately गर्मा गर्म hot share कर रहा हूँ कि जो चीज़ experience से tumble down हो के सीखी है, okay, is there in our texts. It's like a basic fundamental idea that you want to make a success out of anything. You have to keep all aspects of it in mind, not just the creative aspects, right? Because you will need to support those creative aspects. Now, in our case, we were kind of lucky that we could multitask and do many things. So even if we did not have the relevant number of people or whatever, we could still make the films. The film was never not made. किसी भी स्थिति में प्रोजेक्ट तो बनना ही बनना है, ख़त्म होना ही होना है और जितना अच्छा हो सकता है उतना होना ही है, whether there is money or not. Okay? So this is the, इसको हम, when we are in this phase, we are inspired by things like, we are inspired by people like Shivaji, we are inspired by Alexander, you know, अरे वो 24 में उसने पूरा वर्ल्ड कॉन्कर किया, हम कौन सा तीर मार रहे हैं, हम ये भी कर लेंगे, वो भी कर लेंगे. So you are inspired by people that made adversity into success. And it happens. It happened to us also. We did it also. It's not that I'm telling you a sad story here. But it would have been much nicer if he had known many of these things earlier on, because I could have multiplied those numbers into the kind of numbers that you saw Mr. Shikre yesterday with, right? उनके नंबर देखे आपने, कितने लोग बैठे थे वहाँ पर? क्या बात है? माने इतने एनिमेटर्स इंडिया में जमा करना इस वक्त all in all is difficult. There are people working in animation. I will not call them all animators. Okay? Just like there will be people working in architecture, but they may not all be worthy of being called architects. There may be people writing verses, but they may not all be worthy of being called poems. There may be people writing incidents, but they may not all be stories. Right? There are people making films left, right and center. अब सबके हाथ में फ़ोन है, हर आदमी फिल्म बनाता है. But they may not be worthy of being called filmmakers. Right? So, that way we have lots of numbers, because everybody keeps saying, every year they say animation is booming, animation is booming. Who's usually saying this? Institutes are saying this in order to get students to come and whatever. But in its creative sense, if you watch animation on TV, you know how much Indian animation is there and how, whether it's any good or not, right? I don't have to tell you that. You can sit and watch whatever is on TV and you will know कि अरे ये क्या बनाते हैं हम, right? Like some people may have issue even with mythologicals being made into animation, blah blah blah, but that is a content matter. I'm talking about just whether it's any good or not, right? You can have many genres, you can have very different types of content. In our work, you may have seen Raju and I sort of based on contemporary India. मैं का clip आपने देखा होगा, which is based on a folk tale. It's based on rural India. There are of course mythologicals, which is what we got to make feature films out of. Even those, if you ever get the chance to see them, whenever they put it online, you will find are actually quite contemporary in their outlook as what characters they are. They are not just Bhrata Shri. They are not in that zone. They are basically dealing with, like Maya is an architect. He tries to create a world. He tries to create cities which he hopes will prosper, but they don't. And this is his, we can call the film the tragedy of Maya, the Asura architect. We can easily call it that. And which is why when he feels he's failed, there's Lord Shiva, who jiske wo param bhakt hote hain, who tells him that you go back and don't be an architect for any one set of people. You be an architect for the betterment of the entire universe. Give your talents to all. This is not just about one community or another. This is about being much greater than one particular denomination. So it was also a lesson for us. I wrote those lines. So one of the reasons I wrote those lines is because I felt that was what was being said to me at the time. Because in making Tripura, we almost destroyed our studio only. I mean, because it was such a tough project and it was not something that was pulled off before in India in that kind of manner. It was also the first show which animation was produced in Malaysia, right? Now, I know a lot of people are not clued in about the animation process. Shall I try telling you in like 3 minutes or 4 minutes what the animation process is like? Would you be interested? Okay. So, somebody has an idea. I want to make an animation film, right? And an animation film is by definition what? It's a visual medium, right? So the very first thing you have to do is you have to have some visual. Otherwise, it's not of any use. So you put that visual down, and then you put another visual down, and you put another visual down, and you get some sense of why we are making this film in animation, right? In live action, when you shoot your videos also, they are also mini films, okay? While I said earlier that they don't make you filmmakers, there is वो एक बड़ा समुद्र है, we can discuss that later. But you can make a film. You don't have to be a filmmaker to make a film. You don't have to be an animator to make an animation also, okay? Whether that is, it'll always find people who will enjoy it, right? It doesn't have to be Tarzan or Mahabharat or something. So when you start seeing that idea in pictures, in visuals, seems to come across, okay? Then you start planning how to make this into an animation film. Because when you shoot a film, you are able to take a camera and record. Now that camera is shooting us, right? And what it's doing is it's exposing some memory to some images. Now these are digital, but in the olden days you would expose to film. Let's say आप photo निकालते हो, right? So you expose to film, one image at a time. If you took lots of images, like if you take a lot of photographs of somebody going, right? You will see that, right? You've done flip books when you were small, right? So you would do little doodles, and then that guy went like, you know, or jumped up or down, or ball went here and there. So that is all animation. Those are the basic principles of animation. Persistence of vision, which is what makes cinema work. In the cinema reels are projected at the rate of 24 frames every second, okay? And of course now it's digital, blah, 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 but it still runs at that same rate. There are 24 frames per second. And if you freeze, like if you freeze on your Netflix or on your phone or whatever, it's a still frame, no? It's a single still frame. So it's a collection of images put one after the other, which shot at a particular way and projected in a particular way gives you a movie, right? It moves, hence it's a movie, right? And in animation, those images will likely be drawn or created in some sort of 3D software, or done with puppets, or done with cutouts under the camera. There are a zillion ways. If you explore animation on YouTube now, thank God for that, there's so much material that if you have a interest, you can really find things, right? If you look up the work of Norman McLaren, he was one of the experimental animators in Canada, and he experimented with the form of animation in every film that he made. He even animated directly on film. He scratched film, और फिर उसको चलाया, और सब film ऐसा नाच रहा है, music के साथ, it goes like that, you know. So it's fantastic to see that this is also animation, and it can also tell a story, right? If you have the imagination to pull it off, you can also make those scratches tell a story. One scratch comes from here, one scratch comes from there, they start, right? Now whether they made love or they fought with each other, I'll leave up to you. But something happened, right? And it's a story, right? If it's a good story or not, that's a different matter. But it's still a story. And so exposing the images that you make to be run together is the film. Then you put music to it, you put sound to it, and which is like any normal film. Every normal film, by normal I mean live action film, goes through that same process of ideation, of figuring out what it looks like. They have some processes which they will do with real people, which we draw. So costume design, we draw. Location design, we draw. Character design, जैसे जिसको casting बोलेंगे हम. So you say, I think I want Amitabh Bachchan for this role. Okay, fine, but for us, we'll draw. The character may be based on Amitabh Bachchan, but we'll still have to draw. So, in fact, we've done this even for live action films. If you remember in that reel, you may have seen some Eklavya sketches where I designed what Mr. Bachchan might look like in the film, right? So it served as a sort of blueprint for them to see, oh, this is possible, we could try this, we could try that. So, as a visualizer on a film, that's one of the things that you do, is that you visualize and tell the story through images, through visuals, which will help people to make it into a reality. Like somebody will go and make a set of it, somebody will make a costume of it, and it gives them different inputs. It gives them different, they don't have to go and stitch a whole costume and come back. In fact, this little side story behind those sketches is that there were costumes made for Mr. Bachchan, which we tried out in a fitting, and he didn't like them at all at the time because he didn't find that he was looking right in them. And he obviously has a very heightened sense of what it means to look heroic, right? Over many years, he has obviously mastered that art of looking heroic on screen. So, so he didn't feel heroic in those costumes. And I was sitting there and I just drew these drawings. And somebody picked it up and showed it. He's just like, what do you think of this? Oh, yeah, I like this. Yeah, ठीक है. हाँ, ये ठीक है. तो बस वो, then immediately even the costume designer was like, thank God you made that sketch because I had no idea where to begin from. Because it doesn't make any sense, right? I'm not feeling heroic in this. और मतलब अब क्या करूँ जाके कौन सी सिलाई निकालूँ और कहाँ पे क्या डालूँ? So it's not tangible, right? So this is your creative impulse. This is your creative life, right? It's there every moment. You're living in it. You're breathing it, right? It's your thoughts, your imagination. You're thinking it every moment. But you putting it down is living the creative life. Okay? Everybody is creative, right? And when we talk about creativity, we are aware, especially as years go by, that every act that we do is creative. ये मैंने फूल लगाया है, झाड़ लगाया है, ये भी एक creative act है. मैंने आज बहुत सुंदर दाल बनाई है, ये भी creative act है. ये सब creative act है, okay? And when you derive pleasure from it, okay, it's an expression of your creativity, right? But when we are kids, we are not told this. We are not told that everything we do is creative. We are told that वो जो drawing करता है वो बंदा creative है, जिसने गाना गाया वो तो बहुत creative है, जिसने डांस किया देखो कितना अच्छा डांस करती है, गॉड गिफ्ट टैलेंट है, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. ये देखो कितना अच्छा, मुझे तो सीधी लाइन बनानी भी नहीं आती. तो हम कौन सी सीधी लाइन बनाते हैं? हम भी सीधी लाइन बनाने के लिए स्केल ही यूज़ करते हैं. हमको कौन सा बनाना है फ्री हैंड में सीधी लाइन? So there are lots of misconceptions about what creativity means, you know, and creativity is what you already are. If you go back to before you were born to when you were conceived is also a creative act, isn't it? Meaning, बने कैसे हो तुम? शिव और शक्ति से हम पूरा यूनिवर्स ब्रह्मांड बन गया, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. So how are you made? I mean, these are all fantastic, magical things that are happening all around you, and you are part of it. Once upon a time, you were a little baby, and now you are a grown-up person, and now obviously at every point we think we are more grown-up than we are, but you will still grow older, right? And I was at a friend's place yesterday, and his son is all grown up. He plays football and all, and he's like on the phone, आरती करने के लिए ऐसे खड़े रह के आरती कर रहा. You know, and he's a very good chap, and he's very talented, and he plays football really well. But he's all grown up, and he's a strapping young man and all. And then I saw pictures of him on the wall, where he's like, इट्टू सा उसकी मम्मी उसको उठा के ऐसे खड़ी है. I said, माँ कसम ये भी छोटा था इतना सा यार पहले. मतलब हम सभी छोटे होते हैं, but we sort of lose track of that. And if you look at that, and if you are in the wonder of that, see, when you see small children, everybody is in wonder. Oh man, so cute. कहाँ से आया? पपी देखते हैं तो भी वही feeling आता है. एकदम दिल भर आता है. What a puppy, yeah. Well, I should know I have 5 dogs, so I had 5 dogs. So when you look into an animal's eyes, or you go into nature, you say, wow, kya baat hai. It's this innocence which absorbs you, right? And creativity is sitting there in that innocence. Every one of you has drawn when you were a child. Almost 100% of you have drawn and scratched away when you were a child. कोई आप में से जिसने बिल्कुल कोई स्क्रैचिंग नहीं किया बचपन में, ऐसा कोई है आप में से? Did anybody not do घिस with a crayon? Every one of you has, right? हाँ बोलो अगर किया कि नहीं किया, सो तो नहीं किया सब? नहीं लग नहीं रहा है किसी ने किया कुछ. Did you all or not scratch with pencils and ठीक है. So that energy of just putting things like just scribbling. What are we doing? This is all scribbles, right? We'll play you something. Okay. Can you play Sati New? We'll play you one shot. सेकंड रो में है, नीचे शिकारी चंबू के पहले, सेंटर में एकदम सैटी न्यू. क्या बात है. VLC प्लेयर नहीं है. VLC में दुनिया की हर चीज प्ले होती है. ठीक है. Whatever you will see and whatever you saw in that entire show reel is actually all made with scribbles, right? क्या किया हमने? पेंसिल ही तो घिसाया है, right? My father used to call it कागज काले करना when I was small, because he was a musician and he tried to teach me formally and I was like not interested. I was busy doing my own thing. So ये चेतन क्या कर रहा है? चेतन कागज काले कर रहा है. Okay. So while he appreciated it sort of, it obviously bothered him a little bit because slightly derogatory. से कागज काले कर रहा हूँ मैं, ड्राइंग कर रहा हूँ मैं, कागज थोड़ी काले कर रहा हूँ, कागज काले करना ये होता है. You know. So but essentially there's a big truth in that, because what are we actually doing? We are just making scratches one after the other and it becomes a drawing, right? So if you all would have continued scribbling and scratching on paper, you would have drawn whatever you want to by now. It's only you stopped somewhere in the way because somebody said, no, you are not creative enough, you're not talented enough to draw. ये तेरा घर घर नहीं लग रहा है, ऐसे टेढ़ा क्यों है? फिर वो टेढ़े घर बनाने वालों को लाखों रुपए देते हैं, right? That's modern art and all for you. Like people who will have a full canvas with one dot in it. It's beautiful. I'm not debating the value of it. But if you as a child, there are so many people look at it, my child also does better than this. Right? You walk into a museum and there are enough people who are looking at the abstract art and all that. अरे यार मेरा चुन्नू भी यही करता है यार घर पे बैठे बैठे. मैंने भी लगा देना चाहिए. इतने पैसे मिलेंगे? ये कितने का है? 45,000 का है? 40,000 का है? So you know the thing is, there is an appreciation for creativity in a particular place. At home, everybody either expects you to draw like Michelangelo or R.K. Lakshman, and when you don't, you often fall into the space where you're not talented or you're not God gifted or some other nonsense. I thankfully fell into the bracket where everybody for some reason thought God was gifting me far too many things. So no one stopped me from doing anything, and that's why I survived. Okay? I know a lot of people who did not survive because people felt that God had been miserly with them. कुछ तो प्ले होने वाला है या कुछ और प्ले कर देंगे, उसमें क्या है? पॉइंट तो एक ही है, वो थोड़ा फनी था और कुछ नहीं. ठीक है, till they figure it out. If anybody has any questions at any point in time, please stop, because it's stop me meaning don't stop yourself. Don't stop like with your question. Stop me and ask the question, because I got distracted. Line of thought interrupted. So yeah, this, and I still feel today that I could have done much more. Even today I'm discovering that I could be so many more things than I allowed myself to be. Okay? I started learning classical music mid 2019. Okay? And I was lucky to find a guru to do so and all, and I've always enjoyed it and I've always loved it and I've always had a thing for it. But I already told you that my father did try teaching me when I was a kid, and today I'm beating myself about it, because I could have really enjoyed it so much more. You know, I could have had so much more fun all these years with music if I had not been so manchala perhaps as a kid. I think kids should be disciplined somewhat, because left to their own devices, this is where we can come back to I do what I want to do. You don't always know what you should be doing with your time also. And I always feel that it's 50-50. You know a bit, but you don't know a bit. So you should always have people you trust who can give you some input about whether something is good for you or not good for you, or should you do it or not do it at any point, every point in time. At every point in time. And they should not only be of your age group, okay, because they may be interested in what you are also interested in. They may not have any larger or smaller pictures than you. You need a different perspective at every point in time. When I started the studio, my partners were 12 years older than me, right? And so I got to learn a lot. not because they were older than me, but because their perspectives were so vastly different, and that my learning kept on being continuous. If I was maybe just partners with people my own age, we would have probably just been headstrong and said, okay, yeah, this, okay, that, and whatever. And I would have missed out on learning a lot about aesthetics, about the message, how it should be given. That Raju and I film, for which I won a national award for Best Animator from the best president India has ever had. That film was directed by my partner, Gayatri Rao. She was mentioned in the introduction also. And she's the co-founder and director of the studio. And over the years, she's College of Art graduate from Delhi. She did Masters in Design in IDC, just to give you some background. She also did an internship in the Walt Disney Studios. And she's very shy. But she had a vision. And that's what separated Raju and I from anything else that we had done at that time. And that's where I also learned the value of the vision. Though you know it intuitively, अच्छा ठीक है, एक काम करो, वो JPEG ही प्ले कर दो, एक JPEG बड़ा करके दिखा दो, कोई भी वो ऊपर JPEG ही है, ब्लैक एंड वाइट वाला, कॉमिक पेज वाला. That should have been enough to. So the idea of the vision, okay, is I feel the highest point of what when we talk about creativity. Okay, so this is just to make the point about the fact that these are all just scratches on paper, ultimately. If you go zoom in, what is each of these lines? You go and take any drawing that you like. If you go down to it, okay, what is there? They're just lines. But just lines composed in a particular way, they give you a particular result. If I was to compose them in a different way, it could be a very cartoony kind of drawing. But in this case, there is an action scene, blah, 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 this is happening, that is happening. And you get that story from these images. There are no dialogues here, right? Except for, whatever, right? Other than that, there are no dialogues. Something is happening, somebody is attacking Nandi, and that little gunner is jumping on top of that guy. Some more action is happening. All of this, if you boil it down to basics, these are just scratches on paper. And since I've done them, I'll tell you with authority that they're just scratches. Okay? It's just almost all your training in art is how to organize your scratches. Okay? And every time you organize a scratch and you say, wow, this looks like, वो बचपन में क्या होता था कि I would look at those film advertisements that used to come on in the newspapers, right? So I would sometimes try to draw them. कुछ ऐसे कुछ Dawn देखी या कुछ देखी तो अरे वो will make a cutout. I used to make cutouts of those characters and play with them and all that. Make little movies of my own. So sometimes when I would draw something, it used to end up looking like somebody else, right? So अरे ये तो अमिताभ बने हैं, ये प्राण दिख रहे हैं, तो ठीक है ये प्राण है, कोई बात नहीं. So what I learned at that point is that one line here and there is like अमिताभ बच्चन का प्राण बन जाता है, ठीक है? That's how our faces are organized. If you look at each one of you, you're all young people, broadly divided into boys and girls. If you look at young Korean people, you can't often make out who's a boy and who's a girl. Over here, we can still make out, like a lot of people are into that now, so I'm speaking the speak, so to speak. Because you look at those bands and all, you can't easily tell, like, and it's an influence from their pop culture, from Japanese anime, from manga and all that. Even in manga and anime, you can't often make out till a character starts speaking in a really deep voice, "Achha, ye ladka hai?" You know. So we have very clear demarcations of what generally constitutes boy and girl in our country, at least. Wahan pe wo, I mean, I'm just using it for humor's sake. It's not, I have nothing against how you output yourself. But broadly speaking, if you look at boys, you look at girls, if just the faces, you get a sense of how they are proportioned, right? You get a sense, facial hair. Now there are people with beards, but they are not all the same. You see people without beards, but they are not all the same. Then what is it that makes them different? They're all boys, right? It's like when we look at ants, they're all ants, right? We can't make out. But वो ants की दुनिया में हम जाएंगे, तो उसमें वो रहेगा, अरे अर्जुन भैया कैसे हो भाई? वो दूसरा बोलेगा, अरे कैसे हो कमल, आओ साथ में चाय पिए. क्या पता ants का चल रहा होगा कुछ. they make these massive cities, what do they do in them? They just keep moving around or what? कुछ तो करते ही होंगे ना? So this is also what sometimes people feel, make very racist kind of observations about people who are chinky or whatever, you know, सब चीनी हैं, you know, और सब ये हैं, सब नेपाली हैं. So ये सब कहाँ से आता है? This is when we are not looking carefully. We are not, because they are the other, so to speak, you know. We don't look at them carefully. Like where you have difficulty pronouncing Chinese names, right? Dong Xing Xian or whatever. But for them they are normal. Asa Kamalakshi त्याला सांगितलं, if you tell them Kamalakshi and all, they can't pronounce, what the hell is Kamalakshi now? What is Nilakshi, man? It's like Pratap Rudra Narayan, क्या चीज़ है भाई? So there are different contexts for all sorts of people. These are all, you can say, creative expressions, right? They're all creative expressions. We are not saying कि प्रताप रुद्र नारायण is going to be a person who's प्रताप and रुद्र नारायण सब उसमें मिले हुए हैं, ऐसा नहीं होगा वो, लेकिन उसका नाम तो है, किसी के उसके मे भी पेरेंट्स की इच्छा तो होगी कम से कम कि वो प्रतापी हो और रुद्र और नारायण दोनों का मिक्सचर हो. लेकिन these are all ways in which humanity expresses itself, and we as creative people just find ways and means of putting it down. So right now I'm making some sort of comment about it. I'm making some sort of some bhashan about it, and it is an expression of my observations or what I have felt about things, and it is living the creative life. Okay, so somebody said, so sir, ऐसे ही हम लोग एक दूसरे से बहुत बातचीत करते हैं, वो तो भी creative life होगा, वो है, लेकिन उसका कुछ बने भी, right? It should not only be talk. The idea of living the creative life is that the creative life is not in the air somewhere. It has to be expressed, and not just to your pals, you know. You may not have seen a show called, there was a very famous show on MTV called Beavis and Butthead, okay? And there's no real equivalent for it now, but all they used to do is they used to sit on the TV and they used to look at music videos and go, look at that. So yeah, this was an animation, but essentially they were offering their observations about music videos, about chicks, blah, blah, blah. While these two boys, like young kids kind of boys, sitting and just, that's somebody's creativity, yes. But that way of living life is not exactly creative. मैंने फाफा करने का, if I just stood here and talked and every day came and talked, then maybe I would run away from myself, right? You have to do, it has to become something that adds to the world in some way. I have a picture to show you. Till then I was talking about scratches on paper, scratches on paper, scratches. क्या बोल रहा है यार, scratches on paper, क्या scratches on paper? ये scratches on paper. R.K. Lakshman, phenomenal artist. When he became really old, he was still doing cartoons. So his mind was sharp, but his hand is not giving him the support that it should. It's not fluent. So if you look at his cartoons when he's really old, you can see he's just making scratches. Okay? And however that may make you feel when you see that, because for 40, 50 years, this man was so brilliant with his lines, with his brush strokes, fluent, creating worlds within this much space, you know, creating the plight of the common man, of the minister, of the businessman, everything was there. And now still the ideas are still there, but he can't draw no more. If you've seen a really old singer who was master, if you've seen Bhimsen Joshi, anybody heard Bhimsen Joshi? So if you heard Bhimsen Joshi, you listen to these recordings in his prime, he's flying all over the place, his voice is, he was like an architect of sound. He was pura mahal khada kar dete tumhare samne. You were in that mahal of sound. You said, I have experienced this. You said, you felt as if if God is anywhere here, in this sound, I'm in it, you know. And I went to one of his concerts when he was just recovering from a very serious illness and operation that he had. And in his initial alap, he was finding it difficult to sustain notes, you know. And this is the voice of God, and he was having difficulty sustaining notes initially, you know. And that's what, those are also scratches, right? Those are sounds. You make those sounds too. When you put it together, it becomes something. Becomes Yaman, right? So उसमें फिर फिल्म गाने वाला लो, कोई जब दीप जले आना, राइट, वो आपका यमन है, राइट, वेयर इट कम, राइट, these are just sound, different pitches, blah blah blah, you put them together, it becomes something else. So you are expressing what are dance movements, ये किया, वो तो ट्रैफिक पुलिसमैन भी करता है ना, right, what is it, he is also doing na, something or the other, right, but to do it in a particular way, to make some sense of that context, is to start living that creativity, is to start expressing through that more and more complex ideas, right. What all of us understand immediately is a film song, right. हम लोग को immediately a simple clear message is a film song, start to end, वो कुछ बोलता है, क्या बोलता है, क्या बोलेंगे, कुछ फनी सा गाना बताओ, मेरा दिल तोता बन जाए, ऐसे मिठू मिठू बोले हाय, ओके, आई वांटेड समथिंग स्टूपिड, राइट, इट्स एज डायरेक्ट एज इट कैन, दिल तोता बन गया और मिठू मिठू बोलने लगा, सबको मालूम है तोता मिठू मिठू बोलता है, बट समथिंग कुछ तो बोलता है, काव काव जो भी कुछ बोलता है, वो काव काव नहीं बोलता है, तो जो भी बोलता है तो दिल, और सबके दिल कभी ना कभी कुछ ना कुछ बोलते ही हैं, राइट, सो यू एसोसिएट विद दिस मेटाफर के दिल उसका तोता बन गया और मिठू मिठू बोलने लगा या मीठी मीठी बातें करने लगा, विच एवर वे यू लुक एट इट, what the lyricist had in his mind, we don't know. But this is what he's expressed. And as ridiculous as it sounds to, in a serious discussion about art and creativity in a school of architecture, it's the most direct that you can get with your messaging, right? It is the most direct that you can get with your messaging. We won't call it art. धाबा भी एक स्ट्रक्चर है, करेक्ट, उधर चाय बनती है, हम जाके पीते हैं, बाकड़े पे बैठते हैं, बड़ा मज़ा आता है, कुछ लोग स्मोक वोक भी करते हैं आजू बाजू में जाकर, हम चाय पीते हैं, आनंद लेते हैं, थोड़ा बहुत खा वो भी लेते हैं, थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लेक्स ढाबा होता है, चारपाइयाँ लग जाती हैं, राइट, पीछे का किचन का एरिया बढ़ जाता है, आदमी वहाँ रहने भी लग जाता है. सो एज यू कीप बिल्डिंग, दिस इज एन एक्सप्रेशन. एंड yesterday I went to one vada pav stall, so these people were telling me it was part of the ritual that after Ganesh Visarjan they go to this vada pav stall, ठीक है, वाशी की बात है ये. And they told me that this vada pav stall has been here since the early 2000s, or rather this person has been here since the early 2000s, that they have been going there, and he's been selling vada pav. अब इसकी दुकान है. So मैं दुकान में गया, and bustling shop, okay, people dying for vada pavs, okay, just vada pav, everybody wants vada pav, और वो बनाए जा रहा है ऐसे, इतने vada pav साथ में निकाल के डाला है उसके अंदर, वो लेके आए, वो सब पाव में दो पाव में एक साथ भर रहे हैं, तोड़ रहे हैं, इधर दे रहे, उधर दे रहे, मस्त धंधा चल रहा है, और गजब का वड़ा पाव, ओके, वाह वाह, ओके, इट्स नॉट हेल्दी टू ईट सो मच वड़ा पाव एट वन टाइम, बट दिस इज द पावर ऑफ क्रिएटिविटी. तो खाए, जम के वड़ा पाव खाए. नाउ दैट मैन अपेरेंटली यूज्ड टू सिट एट द कॉर्नर ऑफ द रोड विद हिज वड़ा पाव्स, सेम रोड, यूज्ड टू बी सिटिंग एट द कॉर्नर ऑफ इट, इन वन छोटा डब्बा वो लेके वो ऐसा वड़ा पाव उसके ऊपर सजा के बैठता था. टुडे ही हैज अ शॉप, इट्स प्रॉब्ली पेइंग lakhs in rent. I've also heard about a Belpuri wala whose shop rental cost him about 2 lakhs or something per month. Saying, Pani Puri, Sev Puri banata hai. His Pani Puri was not good. I tried it. It is Sev Puri was okay. Apparently that's what he's famous for. Okay? He's not good for his Pani Puri. That's what that grown-up boy that I was telling you about told me. Don't go for Pani Puri. He's famous for the Sev Puri. But somebody else, you know, one sister that had come from somewhere else is saying, nahi, bahut din se pani puri nahi khaya, you know how it is. When you feel like eating pani puri, you have to eat pani puri. So you eat pani puri and then say, kya tha yaar ye? तो वो बराबर पानी पूरी का एक्सप्रेशन बराबर नहीं हुआ, लेकिन सेव पूरी का एक्सप्रेशन ठीक था. बट वॉट वी आर सेइंग इज दैट इट स्केल्स अप, इट स्केल्स अप. This dream, this dialogue, it scales up. It starts from very basic expressions and goes into very complex expressions. We have only gone from the basic vada pav stall to a proper shop. But if you look at the evolution of songs, of poetry, of really sublime poetry, right? I don't have to give you explanations of those. You can find those examples, and you already must be knowing enough songs that are beautiful, whether they are to your lover or to God or to whatever, whether it's Sant Tukaram, whether it's Jnaneshwar, Mirabai, whoever it is, okay? You find expressions of sublime beauty. I mean, Sur Das will express something as simple as a child's love for the baby, Krishna in this case, and make a beautiful song out of it. And we are all singing it. Main nahi makhan khayo, etc., etc., right? So, there is a possibility of taking, and it's an everyday event, right? तुमने कुछ खाया, तुम्हारे मुंह पे लगा हुआ है, माँ बोल रही काय को टोपी पहना रहे, तूने खाया करके ना, वो कुकी का जार कैसे गिरा नीचे, वो बोले नहीं मैं तो ऐसे ही खड़ा था, वो गिर गया, मैंने उसमें से फिर निकाल के खा लिया. सब टोपी सब लोग लगाते हैं, right? So Krishna is also doing topigiri only, and we all understand this, and that's why we love it, because he's like us and she's like our mom, and when she's doing this, it is something we understand, we relate with, and in that relation we make a bond with the divine. Okay, and I think that in a way the whole purpose of I was going to say creative life, but actually any life, is really to express what we can call the divine. I'm not going to call it God, because then people have like explanations, or God ऐसे होता है क्या, वो है क्या, वो Abrahamic God है क्या, हमारा God है क्या, blue God है क्या, green God है क्या, etc., etc. Not interested in all of that, right? Because in our own scriptures we go way beyond that, to God that is formless and to God that is being expressed. And there is a theory that it exists within you, right? Everybody is basic, more or less familiar. किसी ना किसी ने तो बोला होगा भगवान तुम्हारे अंदर है बेटा, बोला है कि नहीं किसी ना किसी ने, किसी बड़े बूढ़े ने तो तुमको बोला ही होगा ना, भगवान तुम्हारे अंदर है बेटा, मन की आंखों से देखो, है कि नहीं? किसी ना किसी ने बोला ही है ना. तो पॉइंट ये है कि हम लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं, कौन सा मन की आंख, मेरे दो ही आंखें हैं ना. When you grow older and you have lots of adventures in life and all that, you develop this faculty to start appreciating other aspects of life, right? And when you do that, you gain a perspective of what the world really is all about. And in that you start seeing with मन की आंखें at some point in time. लेकिन वो बुद्धि बहुत लेट आती है. Okay, by that time we can't do much about with it. It's like, you know, there is a phrase which I will paraphrase, which says that when I was young, I knew nothing, and by the time I know, I don't have the strength to do anything about it. Okay, and this is something that's often quoted by singers, classical singers particularly, because they spend so many years learning and being able to express. And you know, if you all have never heard of Bade Ghulam Ali Khan, try and listen to him at some point. It's on YouTube, so there's no excuse for not listening to Bade Ghulam Ali Khan, one of the most sublime artists ever. And apparently on his deathbed, when he had suffered paralysis and everything, so he was highly debilitated. And by the time he was dying, he was still strumming on his swar mandal and singing to himself in his mind and telling his son that I figured something about Rag Bhageshri right now. And he's popping it the same day. Okay, he's not going to be around anymore, but he's still learning on his deathbed. He just figured something out. He's living the creative life in the last few moments. Oh, I just figured something about Bhageshri. I mean, so this is a state of mind, you know. The creative life is a state of mind. It's not making drawings, it's not doing dance, because people dance, you know. These days a lot more people dance than used to, right? And on apps and all, a lot more people are dancing. And it's good to see that people are very happy and all and dancing. And but if the dance is out of happiness, it's good. If the dance is out of expression of creativity, it's good. And yesterday, I heard someone say that this institution, understanding the past, I heard these words, understanding the past, interpreting the present, and trying to design the future or something like that. And that's what you're doing every point in time. You understand? When as a group you do it, you're an institution here. So as a group, you say that these are our goals and objectives, that we will understand the past, we will try and interpret what's going on in our lives, and we'll maybe design a better future for ourselves. But in your life, you're doing it every moment. Every choice that you're making is based on who you are, whatever you have learned in the past, and what you think you want to do with it right now. And it's obviously designing your future. जो अभी टाइम पास करेगा वो बाद में कल पछताएगा, वो शिकरे जी की तरह बड़े बड़े बिल्डिंग्स नहीं बनाएगा, राइट? वो मे बी कुछ और करेगा या कुछ ढाबा बनाएगा, पता नहीं, you know. So it depends on what you do with your time, right? There are many artists in animation, but I'm standing here and giving you a talk. Why? Is it because I talk? Is it because I did more animation? Is it because I did more drawing? Is it because I did lots of different things? Or is it because I have curly hair? I don't know. But for whatever reason, everything that I have ever done in my life has led me to this point. And I was thinking to myself, what am I supposed to tell these people about living the creative? Because actually the creative life is just to be led, right? There's nothing to do per se in it, but there is. And that is to be aware of it. It is to be conscious of it. कि आप कर क्या रहे हो? You know, when we started the studio, after 2 years or so, my father suddenly asked me one question. Okay? He said, "Ke in that earlier job, you had finally started to earn money. Like, why did you leave it and start the studio? Like, you would have made so much money by now." Okay, and by that time, at that time, 10,000 rupees a month was a lot of money. Okay? अभी इंटर्न नहीं आते उसमें, लेकिन उस वक्त 10,000 rupees, like, oh, wow, wow. So, I had made it in their eyes at that point. As a young person who was barely 18, I think I was doing fine. So they said, why didn't you continue with this? Like, you could have earned a substantial amount of money. And obviously I was going to progress and become more and more senior, because in the creative arts, that's one great thing. Okay? And I'm living proof of it, is that it's not really your age that makes you anything. Okay? It's how much work you put in. It's how much effort you're willing to put in, how much you are willing to do that work with consciousness and with awareness, and with an aim to grow, and with an aim to make a better product, and with an aim to help your entire team get ahead. Okay? I was on the up and up because I was doing all of these things. I was not a person who said, मुझे मेरा काम पे छोड़ दो, मुझे मेरे हाल पे छोड़ दो, मुझे तुमसे कुछ भी ना चाहिए, मुझे अपना काम करने दो, don't disturb me. I had those phrases also. But the way you grow in a creative field is when you are really energized yourself, energizing others, expressing, helping others express, and together creating a better product. And if you keep doing that, there's no other place for you to go but to progress. It's upwards and upwards. Unless you have terrible bad luck, which people then call, इसको तो बेचारे को कोई 7.5 ही लग गई होगी, ऐसा कुछ होगा, etc., etc. वो अलग बात है. Let's not worry about luck. We don't care for it. Actually, we do care for it when it hits us badly. But let's leave it aside, because you can't do anything about it anyway. You can only be good at your work. You can only be good at expressing yourself. Then the opportunities may present themselves. But what if you're not ready at that time? Right? What if you have extremely good fortune and you don't know what to do with it? It's like somebody comes and says, here's $1 million or whatever, make the best dhaba you can. And it's like, shit, dhaba. I never paid attention to a dhaba before. Okay, let me start going to do research, blah, 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 blah. He says, no, I want it in 24 hours. Okay, you know, then you are screwed, because you have to prepare. Even to make the most basic things, you are always in preparation, you're always learning, right? And in the field of architecture, I learned many new things yesterday from the talk. I don't know anything about making tall buildings with glass facades, but I learned a lot of stuff. Like कैसे कैसे उन्होंने कहाँ पे उन्होंने 80% बाहर बना के लाया, इधर लाया. They kept the on-site work to the minimum so that they could minimize cost, minimize time, made it in a time frame, blah blah blah, and made it eco-friendly. And there were many more terms which I'll probably have to watch it like 4 times to. But I got the spirit of it. I got the spirit of what they were looking for in each building, and that doesn't happen overnight. It's work. You have to put in the work, and the work is fun. Don't be worried about work. Work is fun. If you like what you're doing, which is that EMI trap, then you don't get into that space where you are doing the work for work. Like, I have to do it, yeah, because I have to pay the EMIs, yeah. No, I can't do this, yeah. No, I don't have so much time, yeah. You don't try and avoid that for as long as you can. Okay? I was able to avoid it for a really long time because of my parents and because I started very young. Okay? So I had both time on my side and I had supportive parents. So I could avoid it for the longest time. In fact, I'm still sort of avoiding it. Okay, I'm still managing to avoid it, and hence I can sort of remain supple and can try and do things that I didn't do yesterday. I don't have to repeat myself. I can do interesting things. We've kept our studio small so that we are not in that cycle of trying to just keep that whole machinery moving. We are not in it to make machinery move. you know. But if we can get lots of excited people to create interesting animation films and who are interested about the art and craft of it, then yes, then by all means we'll take any number of risks, like we did with Tripura, or like we did with Raju and I, like we did with Meh. We'll take any number of risks in order to provide those opportunities both to ourselves and to people. We very early on said every project is Saraswati. Okay? Everybody is familiar with Ma Saraswati? Mota mota? Raise your hands if you are familiar with her. Okay. वीणा वीणा पकड़ के बैठी रहती है, ठीक है? And she's very important, right? Because we pray to her before we start learning and blah blah. And we said every project is Saraswati. She will teach you. Are you willing to learn? Is this a job you're trying to hack out? Is this a project that you're just going to submit? Is this a assignment that you're saying, man, ये क्या assignment लगा रखा है यार, मुझे कोई free time ही नहीं मिल रहा है, हाँ मैं तुझे यार मुझे मज़ा करना है, मैं film देखने भी नहीं गया 2 महीने से और एक assignment दे दिया. This is not taking the project as Saraswati. Just to give you a very blatant kind of over the top expression of it. And this happens to all of us, huh? This is not, it may sound like I'm making a student kind of joke or whatever, but it happens to each one of us. And we are then no longer living the creative life. We may be doing creative work, but we are not living the creative life. There's a big difference, right? You are drawing and everybody says, what are you, he's into creative work, yeah, he's doing this work, yeah, because he's in animation, yeah. No, if you're in animation, doesn't mean you're living the creative life. If you're an architect, doesn't mean that you're living the creative life, because the creative life is expression. If you're not expressing, if you are inhibited in your expression, if you are afraid to express, if you are too lazy to express, if you're too tired to express, if you're too beaten down to express, whatever the reason for you not expressing, if you're not expressing, you're not living the creative life. You're not being all you can be, right? You can learn anything if you feel an attachment and a desire to learn it. See, desire is the root cause of everything, right? But the expectation of what should happen is probably what people had to write Bhagavad Gita and all to warn us about, right? Desire is very critical. If you have the desire to become a great artist, you will get on the way to becoming one. If you have the desire to be an extremely rich person, maybe you'll do something about it. If you have the desire to be a good doctor, maybe you'll study and get your grades, you blah, 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 and have genuinely try and help people and etc., etc. If whatever the desire may be, I mean, you fall in love, you get married, I mean, you have a desire, that's why you do it, right? I mean, some people don't, but that's a different matter. But mostly, right? That's what songs are written about, right? सब प्यार मोहब्बत के गाने किस लिए होते हैं? Because an expression of desire. दिल तोता बन जाए और मिठू मिठू क्यों बोल रहा है भाई? क्योंकि डिज़ायर पैदा हुआ है, राइट? तो हर किस्म का डिज़ायर जो है leads to something, leads to you doing something, right? If you don't do anything about it, unrequited love all over the place, who gives a damn? Right? Saved. You know, who gives a fig leaf for all the wonderful things you have in your head, right? I have truckloads of wonderful things on my head, like lots of ideas. It's not just this. I mean, as many ideas as I've got, you know, hair on my head for as long as I have it. But if I don't do something about it, if they don't become product, if they don't become something I can share with you, I'm not expressing them. I'm not living the creative life. And the creative life is in the living of it. Okay? It's in the living of it. It's not even the product itself. For you, once the product is made, what? You can't live through it. रोज रोज तुम जाके अपना ही फिल्म देखोगे क्या? नहीं ना? It becomes annoying by the time you finish it. Any project becomes horribly annoying by the time you finish it. Because you know, I didn't get to do this, I didn't get to do that, somehow I had to finish it, they kept pressuring me to finish it, somehow we finished it, this looks wrong, that looks wrong, this looks wrong, etc., etc., etc. फिर उसको भले राष्ट्रपति अवार्ड भी दे दे. It still looks like, yaar. But the point is, your life is still on, and you can go and do the next thing better, and the next thing better, and the next thing better, and then maybe make Kohinoor Towers at some point. You know, some of us may be lucky to start making Kohinoor Towers. I was very, very lucky to have gotten into animation at the right time, where I could do something about it, where nobody needed to be worried about my future. ये पता नहीं क्या कर रहा है यार, दिन रात वो बैठ के drawing करता रहता है और बोलता है ये कार्टून बना रहा है, कार्टून बना रहा है. बट दे कुड लेट मी बी बिकॉज आई वॉज वेरी यंग एट द टाइम. ऑफ कोर्स दीज डेज ऑफ कोर्स इज फैशनेबल एंड ऑल. अरे एनिमेशन तो बहुत बड़ा बिजनेस है आजकल. वो डायनासोर वायनासोर बनाते हैं ना, वो एनिमेशन ही तो है, रियल थोड़ी है. आज का तो रणबीर कपूर भी एनिमेशन है. तो यू नो वो थोड़ी उड़ता है कि नहीं. वो ब्रह्मास्त्र कहाँ से आ गया उसके हाथ में है, ये एनिमेशन ही तो है. तो टुडे पीपल आर लॉट मोर अवेयर ऑफ एनिमेशन बट नॉट एग्जैक्टली. इट्स VFX is a sort of like a different stream of animation, making animation films, telling the whole story from scratch with where you are starting with nothing but, well, even those people start with nothing but a blank whatever, but the end goals are different. An animation film told entirely in animation does not have the support of stars, of their personal lives being flashed every day in your face. They're not able to benefit from the voices of great singers and whatever so much. They have to make their presence on their own. Those characters have to live on their own. Then only they make any sense. Now if you had seen the little cartoon, are we not able to play it still? Chalo theek hai. Chalo theek hai. Well, you can watch any of these animation things on our channel on YouTube, Animagic India. Like they say, please like, share, subscribe. But watch them to put what I said in context. When you watch a single 30-seconder out of that, there are these series of ads. They're called Lele, Sati, Mishra ji. Okay, just see let's just play that Shikari Shambhu. Maybe let's see a bit of that. Sound. I think you can just pause for a moment. So this is a very small cartoon. It's just like 50 seconds or something. And I want to just highlight a few things when we say creative life, blah, blah, blah. This tiger is based entirely on my dog, okay, who, well, to put a tragic note, passed away last year. But he had become quite old. So even when drawing him, of course I felt sad when drawing it. But he was like a tiger, he was a dog, but he always had that kind of tiger majesty to him. So I don't go and like sit in a tiger's cave to figure out how a tiger sleeps. But when I look at Shambhu, his name was Shambhu, I say, yeah, this is exactly what it does. And then वो उल्टा होके ऐसे सोया ना, तो that is something that comes from there. फिर आपने अभी ये जो ललाबाई सुना है जो शंभू जी गा रहे थे, that actually comes from a 1950 song which had Raj Kapoor and Suraiya in it. Okay, you all can, if you type Tarari Tararu, you will get it on YouTube. It's like that kind of song, and I really like it a lot. So I just used it in this as something that puts the tiger to sleep. Shikari Shambhu you all are familiar with, right? Tinkle Comics and whatever. So the idea was to bring this guy into animation, to give him some sort of life and to figure out what does he sound like. Who knows what Shikari Shambhu sounds like, right? Isn't it Tinkle Comics? So all of those small decisions of how he may sound, what does he look like. I mean, even though if you compare his appearance this with the comics, it's different. It's not exactly the same. He's modified for animation. And I think they're following this now. At least that's what the Tinkle guy told me. Let's play maybe one more, then we can get an idea. इसके बाद ही आगे आएगा.
शिकारी रघु
So you transfer everything you know about life and you put them in the cartoons, right? It's nothing else but that. So I think I've given you like an overview of my life and what I feel about what I do without, because if animation techniques, if you ask me a specific question, I think that little outline was about what I can explain. If we had more time, I would take you through the exact process of how every drawing, every animation gets made. And okay, maybe I'll show you something. Go to how to animate folder. Let's go to production. अच्छा, go to ELF, इसका video play होगा. Go to character. Okay. Do these play or not? Show us the images by that time that Roshan will load up. So whenever we have to design a new character, we'll mine into all the experiences that we have ever had, people that we have met, and it will it's a stream of subconscious like thing, you know, it's like a stream of consciousness thing. So you keep drawing and you keep trying to explore. So this was meant to be a lady from Delhi who has a particular spunk to her and she voices the jingle. So this was about 4 characters from around the country, okay? And so there was this Punjabi lady from Delhi, there was a Maharashtrian man from Pune, there was a South Indian gentleman, and there was somebody from Bihar. And so in trying to find these characters, this is when the characters were being voiced. There's a very famous voice artist who's also Chetan, who's called Chetan Shashital. And he was doing the voices of the character while I was drawing in the studio. So just go ahead. So we just compiled all the drawings here so that you can get a sense of just continuously sketching out how does she express, how does she look. It's all different in some ways, but there are some commonalities that you're trying to find, right? What is her personality like? Like then that kid, I just suddenly drew her kid. And everybody was very excited with this kid, and they said, oh, you know, let's bring this kid also in. So he ends up coming into the film. You'll see him. आगे जाओ. हाँ. So based on what she's saying, and she's singing a song, and she's all full glamour and everything, and there's a little son also again. And so all of these are just exploring before the animation begins, okay? Before we construct the film. When we spoke earlier about putting the visuals down, in this case, these films are completely character driven. There's literally no background, okay? They are only about this character, and that character has to come out. So instead of drawing anything else, you only focus on the character and the expressions. You can, the equivalent of this would be casting in a live action film, right? You will get many actors and try to see which one fits the bill best, who can act this out, okay? Even for your ads and all, every character in an ad is cast, right? So they find out कौन ये मम्मी का रोल बराबर करेगा या कौन ये लड़के का रोल बराबर करेगा, you know. So every role is cast. So this is the equivalent of that. It is also the equivalent of the actor doing rehearsals, because as she's being cast, she's also rehearsing. What will I do? How high can I take my legs? How does you know, how can I make this expression? How will I do this or how will I do that? She's acting as well. Before we actually animate her, she's actually acting as well. Just go ahead. You'll see some more characters also. So these are initial sketches for the South Indian guy who's a flashy film buff come biker. See, let's see more. So here you can see that character is evolving in different ways. We are trying to find. There's still a core which remains the same from the start. But as you keep trying to find its outer structure, keep going in. So see, all of those drawings put together with some more. So that's his bike. Okay. So you see his proportions have changed, you know. Most of your art is about proportions, you know, about if you look, I was telling you about the face. If you look at each person's face and how it is different from the other, it's a matter of proportions, you know. And you keep trying to find the right proportion for your character. Go ahead. There's me also in it. So when my actor was finally happy with me, he gave me a pat on my back and he said, "ठीक है, मैं आ गया हूँ अभी. I am here. Yeah, let's see what we can do." So he became Tiger Thangarajan. And let's see more. Yeah, so now he's rehearsing. Now once he's in place, we know what he looks like, then he starts rehearsing. What will he do? Shall we make him do this? Shall we make him do that? And in thinking those thoughts, we start seeing various different attitudes. And these will come from things that you have seen in the past also, from actors that you observed, MGR, Rajnikant, Shivaji Ganeshan, you know, the way they move their heads, whatever, you know. It could be all those things. You will bring whatever works for your character in it. Aage more of the same, right? So here you can see, just go back. So here you can see we are checking out how much his mouth will stretch, you know, how will he make certain expressions. ऐसे देखेगा तो कैसे देखेगा, you know, वाह चिल्लाएगा तो कैसे चिल्लाएगा. All of those things we are looking at, okay? If he freaks out, how much does his cheek move up and down? What happens to it? All of these things we are looking for. आगे जाओ. This is actually a frame from the film. So this is an animation drawing. So this is actually, before it gets cleaned up, this is what that drawing looks like. This is again from the film. So the bike is made in CG, he's drawn, you can see there's no background, and that's the product. And he's saying, "Yelf in tongue, heart without fears." He's saying something like that. And there he is. So these are the rough drawings you saw. And you can see that in color, we still keep adding more ideas. So now he's got a gold tooth, and he's got other bling with him. So every line we have in this animation that you'll also see, every line is drawn, right? So you have to be really economical with how many lines you put there. I mean, his hair is quite crazy in that sense, okay? But things like chest hair and all, people avoid because it's insane to animate all these things. But we said, no, it's part of this guy. We'll do it. Like, we'll just have fun with this. We'll just do it. So I hope we can play the film now after all this. Jao, aage jao. ठीक है. Now just let's see if we can play the film. That at least you can, no? ठीक है. So you'll see Thangarajan. Sati you can see on YouTube.
Beautiful ladies, kindly listening to Tiger Thangarajan, King of Kottayam, motorbike champion for 32 years, Yelf in tongue, heart without fears, King of Kottayam, film industry daily saying, please come, Poda, with Yelf I am born to run, Yelf Moto 4 Gold, engine ton, salong sal.
Yeah. So all of that becomes this. Frame by frame by frame by frame, you make that character come alive in whichever way. So this is really animating or trying to bring to life something that didn't exist before, but now exists as a person that even I can look at and say, "Hare, theek hai, nice, happy to meet you." So when you get that, you get some satisfaction out of the animation process, and that really, when you all appreciate what happens to those monkeys in Shikari Shambhu, when you'll enjoy that, you can see the whole series. There are about 10 of them on the channel, and when it connects with you, when a film like Raju and I connects with you, that circle is then complete. Okay, as an artist, now we've been talking about a creative life, right? But now I'm talking purely as an artist, because a creative life is far wider than an artist's purview. An artist has got to create art, right? And making an animation film is an art, and I'm a practitioner of that art and craft of making animation films. So usme your main focus is what is called ras banana, okay? Where you make the audience feel what you are wanting them to feel. So if it's a tragedy, or if it's a comedy, or if it's something silly, ridiculous, you want them to partake of that same emotion. So as an artist, you are creating and using elements to manipulate and get that result, whether you're on theater, whether you're singing or whatever. But the creative life is far more than that, and you could do any number of things in it. Okay. Somebody was gifted a book on leather crafting, and 20 years after he was gifted that book, he started working on it. And he really enjoyed it. And suddenly one day turned around and told my partner, he said, "Thank you for that book. Yeah, because I'm really enjoying it." And she couldn't even remember when she'd given him that book. Like, 20 साल पहले दिया था book. You know, but it's that spark, and when it hits, starts doing something, starts creating something, it's part of his life now, right? It's not for sale, it's not for display, but it's part of his creative life. It's part of who he is, part of being who he is, and that gives him happiness, right? It will be very good if, and it's my prayer for all of you, that you may find work that makes you really happy and that keeps you occupied fruitfully, and where you don't grudge it, where you feel, wow, I'm having fun, you know. But it's not easy to come by, number one, and you should, whenever you get the chance, you should feel very lucky. Should try and work with people that share your belief systems, or your desire to excel, or your desire to do something interesting. Because without that, there people are just pulling each other down. Is it, मेरे को ये बनाने का दिल करे, क्या करेगा बना के यार? इसका क्या करना है? ये थोड़ी बिकता है कहीं? कुछ और बना यार? नहीं मुझे glass work, नहीं glass को क्या करना है यार? So there are enough people who will tell you all sorts of things about what. So choose your friends very carefully. Is also an interesting. I was very lucky to find the right friends, and I can make all these statements now because I've seen what happened to people who didn't make the right friends. You see, I completely took my friends for granted, right? I didn't even know how lucky I was. I was made for this, and I did it, and I didn't realize what great stuff was happening around me till I saw others. I said, oh, why didn't this happen with them? I mean, and it doesn't. So, when you're living your creative life, it's really, it's a zone, okay? And if you're tripping on that zone, like when we say, oh, I was really tripping on it, I had a great time and whatever. When you're tripping on it, it builds on itself, right? And that attracts the right kind of people and the right kind of things. So I was very lucky that because I was tripping on it, and because I was not stressed about other things, and I was just so into it, that I found the right people, got to start a studio where I could be nurtured, where I could nurture myself and could be nurtured and could nurture other people. Over these last 25 years, I became like major Guruji at a very young age, and you know, log mere pair bhi padte the pehle. So it's all bauchlane wali cheez. But why? Why does that happen? Because your work gives you that. You are nothing without it. It's your expression. I wouldn't even say work, because then people tend to think, no, it's work, salary, development. No. It's your expression. Somebody who does not make a lot of money, but his expression is pure, you will always get up when they walk into the room. You will give him seat, right? It is not about whether he has as much money as Ambani or whatever. That is not relevant. But किसी का तेज होता है उसका काम करने का. I wish that for everyone. You know, I wish that whatever drives you forward fills you with that joy, you know, that you can then transmit to future generations. Because you can be so many things which are not dreamt of. I did not know that I was going to be all these things. I just wanted to animate. When I started, I would have been very happy to just be sitting in one corner and animating, just making one character come to life after another. I had to become a director, I had to become a producer, I had to become a writer, I had to become a voiceover guy, I had to become an editor, I don't know how many more things. And then I got involved in live action films, then I got involved in this, and I started in children's books. But children's books it's sort of the same thing, it's just telling stories. And I even became a storyteller, and then I started doing workshops. I was extremely not interested in being out in public, okay? If you can, some people say, we can't believe that, you're just faffing. No, for years no one saw my face. It's true, because I was just with my work. There was nothing else but me and that, and I was not interested in anything. So I'm not saying that you do that. Please go have picnics and have fun and all that. Okay, I had a lot of fun, so I was having my fun, right? And it's whatever drives you, whatever is your creative life expresses itself in unique ways, and you should not regret that you didn't, or I wish I had, when you're 40 and 50, because now I'm past 40 and I find a lot of people that regret a lot and have lost a lot more hair. So I'm not against losing hair. I mean, it may happen to me sometime. My father certainly lost his hair. So enjoy it while it lasts. It's a great life. Some brilliant people have not even, sometimes their lives get taken from them also, There could be a war tomorrow. There could be a flood like it is in our neighboring country. Any number of shit can happen, And so for you to appreciate what you have here and what you have around you, the kind of teachers, leaders, professors, people of knowledge, and they're trying to organize all this, getting a cartoonist to come and talk to you about creative life, whatever, but it's your life. And you are going to be doing stuff with it. And you should not finish it before you do something, that you are happy with. And if you are happy with doing nothing, that's also fine, okay? No harm. But make sure that that's your choice, not something that you just kind of fall into, right? So मेरा भाषण बहुत लंबा हो गया, because no one asked me any question, no one stopped me, and it's very important to stop me. So I am going to now stop myself, because I don't think there's any time, and I hope that if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but for your sake.
No, I feel we definitely have questions.
Wow.
So before the question answer series begins, we'd like to thank you. Thank you so much for this absolutely engaging and insightful session. We had a great time. We've undoubtedly expanded our creative horizon, which will help us with proceeding ideas ahead. So we now start our question answer series, and students and faculty members would be curious enough to ask you.
इसको पहले कर लेना चाहिए था, क्योंकि मैं ये सब anyway answers में बोलता था. So let's see, let's have it.
Hello sir.
हाँ.
I'm Rishi from second year. So after this session, I surely think a lot of us would have grown some interest in animation. So I would like to know how I, as a student with this minimal background about animation, can create opportunities for myself and broaden my spectrum.
In animation?
Yeah.
Okay. So in animation, and also give you quickly, broadly speaking, in film itself. Look at architecture and the history of architecture also, from a storytelling perspective. Every building tells a story, you've heard this. So imagine those stories. Talk to those buildings or whatever. I mean, if it's sounding mystical, and it's okay, it is. All right? There's no two ways about it. And then try and see what other stories you can tell with it. Like you have a dialogue. Like the building is telling you a story. Now you tell the building a story. Zed नहीं, अगर तुझे डाकुओं ने लूट लिया होता तो क्या होता तेरा? हैं? तो बड़ा शान से खड़ा है इस वक्त. लेकिन आतंकवादियों ने आके तुझे ब्लो अप कर दिया होता तो क्या होता? है कि नहीं? So it's about exercising that imagination and strengthen the basics that you have, strengthen the knowledge of architecture in you, so that when you go into a film unit or an animation studio, if there's anything to do with building architecture or an era or anything, you should be the person they turn to, right? You should be an authority in your field. When you come, इसने architecture पढ़ के आया है, okay? तो ऐसा नहीं होने का अच्छा architecture पढ़ के आया करता क्या है? So your work will speak, okay? And you are only useful to a team. Like all filmmaking is teamwork, okay? Even though sometimes there are directors who are like very demanding of their own vision and all that, and not sounding very collaborative sometimes, but it is the director's vision which makes the film. Now the thing is that everybody adds to that director's vision, right? So when you come with the right amount of information, this is not just for architects, for anybody that wants to get into filmmaking or animation, and actually broadly in any work, but I'm going to speak about this only. When you come to the table, even as an intern, whatever you've studied and come, you better know it inside out, okay? आर्किटेक्चर पढ़ के आया है, लेकिन आर्किटेक्चर में बोलो अच्छा तो मेरे इस टाइप का बिल्डिंग कैसे होगा, वो इमीडिएटली आना चाहिए. दैट शुड बी द लैंग्वेज यू स्पीक. दैट इज़ वाई यू आर इन द टीम. वाई यू इन द टीम, नॉट समवन एल्स, राइट. जगह भरने के तो कोई लेता नहीं है ना किसी को. सो इफ वन इज लुकिंग फॉर पीपल हु हैव अ सेंसिटिविटी towards building, towards the stories that buildings tell, and it's very, very important. And in animation, though, you will have to look at it from a mythological perspective, from a historical perspective, from any number of perspectives. And not just that, this buildings will have to be redesigned sometimes for cinematic purposes and all that, especially in live action cinema. In animation में तो हम जो मन में आया कर लेंगे, लेकिन in live action you will have to construct it physically as well. So you should know your stuff, especially at least know all there is to know about architecture. सीख लो, फिर आके मज़े करो, because then you be the person that is going to design that world. You will sit with the director will say मुझे कोई ऐसा चाहिए. Like I was very interested in set design, okay, and I had books on set design, film architecture and all that, and I was very interested in it. So when I got working on some live action films, they had an art director and production designer on this thing, but I was doing storyboards, I was doing visualizing for, and when I was drawing those sets, the director was saying, yeah, this is looking like the space, yeah, because I used to draw my map of what the place will be and where the camera will be positioned and everything. So when I drew that, the director will suddenly feel, you know, this is how the place should feel. I'm not getting that in that. वो उन्होंने कुछ ऐसे बनाया ऐसा कि ऐसा सेट ऐसे बनेगा करके, उसमें कुछ सिनेमैटिक है ही नहीं. वो क्यों है, उसका स्केल वैसा क्यों है, what is the reason for this, what is the reason for that? That our animation training taught us, because in animation nothing is random. In live action there can be a lot of random shit, but in animation nothing is random. It's there because somebody put it there. So because of that animation training, we were able to say, इतनी गोनियाँ चलेंगी क्या, इतनी और होनी चाहिए, या इतना रखेंगे तो इसके हाइट से, अमिताभ के हाइट से थोड़ा सा और ऊपर चला, ऐसे होगा वैसे होगा. सो ऑल ऑफ दैट थिंकिंग, सडनली देयर आईज आर ओपनिंग, से वाओ दिस इज ग्रेट, कैन यू मेक अ फुल sketch of this and I'll give it to the production designer. So yeah, sure, I'll make it. I made a full pen sketch of whatever and we gave it to the. So same like with costumes, I was also a student of costume design and everything, though I'm not going to stitch a costume ever, but I need it for my animation characters. So knowing that, how should a character be presented? Again, it's animation training, and so these people realize, oh wow, this can be used, because they don't understand storytelling often. वो सिर्फ कपड़े बना रहे हैं. हम लोग character बना रहे हैं. We are designing the personality. We are not designing only clothes. We are not stitching clothes. So you come with that. You start thinking about story in everything you do, and you learn everything with that focus. And you watch films with that focus. You watch animation films with that focus. And then you will be an amazingly valued member of any animation team. I can assure you, it's a need. Let me just tell you very honestly, it is a need. We do not have good layout artists, as we call them, or designers who can design space very well. That's why I had to do it myself. Why? I had to do it myself because of that. You know? So, theek. Does that answer your question?
Hello sir, I'm Fahad from 4th year. So you mentioned various like processes that you go through while creating your characters. You mentioned various experiences, or taking people from Pune or Maharashtra and all that. So while designing, like creating those characters during this explorative process, do you go like out of track sometimes, or
out of what?
Like out of track while designing like the storyline or something like that?
Huh. Yeah, you should, because everything cannot be according to a formula, right? So you are trying to find it yourself. Filmmaking as a process becomes interesting, or any illustration, even a single picture. You know how to draw, right? So a lot of people tell me, "Arey, you can draw so fast, then why you're taking so much time doing this book?" Right? Because I'm trying to find something in it. I can draw and give you. If I do a workshop now, I'm doing a children's book right now. So if I was to stand in front of you, I would probably design all 17 spreads of it on stage here, right now. And people say, look, see how fast you are. Then why you took all these months on it? Because I'm trying to do something that I do not know how to do. What I can do, I can do. No harm. If you want the book tomorrow, I'll give it to you. But if you have the time, then let me explore and find what it is that I'm looking for. And sometimes it involves going out of track also. And but you should, if you're with people who know how to bring you on track, or if you are self-aware, this is something I mentioned before, that you have to be self-aware. मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे, क्यों कर रहा हूँ, If I'm going out of track, have I just gone out of track? Or is there a reason for it? You know, because every day at the end of the day, you can take some sort of stock of what you've done, no? So asking yourself and speaking to yourself and to other like-minded and intelligent people is a good way to keep on track also. But the creative process will always take you off track, because the creative process is trying to take you into the zone. You can't resist it, and you should not. You should not, because then you'll end up with everything that has already been done, right? It should not be what has already been done. I mean, everything is already done, isn't it? So Mahabharat में सब characters already हैं, तो हम काय को बना रहे हैं stories? But there is something interesting that could come out, and that might be entertaining to people or might put it in a different way. So allow yourself full freedom to go out of track and to explore, but keep in mind the deadline, whatever it is. Yeah.
Hello, sir. So, like with metaverse coming into picture, we have all sorts of arts coming together and create something. It's a new opportunity. But on the other hand, we have artificial intelligence, and I don't know how to say this, but it is trying to steal everyone's job. So, what do you think in the near future is going to happen to us artists and designers? Are we going to be their puppets, or they are going to be our puppets?
Well, we are supposed to have some sort of creative vision about the future, but इतना creative मैं ऐसा कोई ऋषि मुनि थोड़ा हूँ नहीं कि मुझे अंतर्दृष्टि से दिखाई दे कि आगे चल के AI क्या करने वाला है हमारे साथ. And I would also say that apart from a curiosity about it and maybe an interest to explore it as well, I am interested in living the creative life, right? So that creative life can't be led by AI. If the AI lives his own creative life, good for it, or him, her, I don't know what it is, but good for AI. But हमारा जो creative life है वो हमने lead करना पड़ेगा. Now what this means for us professionally and all, don't know. But that anyway we don't know. I mean, like, did you know about COVID? No, it happened. No, it ruined a lot of people's lives and all. Even before that, there are extremely talented people jobless. So it happens. So who takes away whose job is not really our concern. Our concern is ourselves, not in a selfish kind of, oh, I'm only concerned with that, please mind your own business. Not like that. But in a sense that you can only add to the world through yourself, right? If you're a mother and you want to cook for your child, you'll have to cook, right? Without cooking, that food is not going to come out for the child, right? The child will be sitting and wailing after a point, he'll keep crying and all, and you can kick it if you want. Like, it's not going to stop, right? If a dog wants to go out to do susu, he wants to go out to do susu. You got to take it out to do susu. You can't stop. You can't say, no, don't do susu. So you got to do what you got to do, right? And if your creative life is expressing and is wanting to express in different ways, you might use AI also in the process, like digital tools, for example. I do all my books digitally. Now, if I was to go back 40 years, some old uncle will say, "Arey, no, beta, you have to do everything with watercolor, with brushes and all." Well, I don't have the time. But I'm using it to tell my story. I'm using it in a way that I want to tell the story. I'm not letting the computer make brush strokes for me. I'm making those brush strokes. I'm just making them with a digital pen instead of a brush. And I'm not getting my clothes dirty. And I can do undo. Right? So I'm using my tools at my disposal to express myself even more. If somebody was to say, no, you please paint your books and all like in real world artworks, probably I'd do less books. They said, no, I do two dozen books. I wouldn't do two dozen books. I don't have that kind of time. I can only do it because these tools allow me to get the result I want with lesser fuss than otherwise. Because then I would have had to learn how to use watercolors. I know what I want it to look like. So I'll get it to look like that, but I can't sit and actually master watercolors. I don't have that kind of time. So I am using it to make my life, I wouldn't say easier. I don't make my life easy under any circumstance. Okay. So I'm using it to go further than I would otherwise. You know, earlier in the very early stages of our studio, I used to draw the picture, somebody else used to paint them, because in that there was no digital painting at the time. So I left the painting to somebody else to do who was good at it. I'm not always happy with that result, but then I didn't have the time to do it because I was already doing animation and everything. So we don't know how you end up using AI, or whether AI will end up using you. I don't know all these things. But you yourself are an indivisible unit. Till you pop it, of course. Then you're a separated unit. But till you are together, what you do with your life and your time that makes you happy, that fulfills you, and maybe is a profession for you. That is an ideal situation, right? And AI is not the only thing that can take away your job. Jealous colleagues, there are many other things. There's a lot of not artificial intelligence also which will try and take your job. Undercoating contemporaries. There are many other ways in which you can, people who do not like maybe not getting kickbacks. There's a lot of reasons you may not get the job. So you can only focus on why you're doing it in the first place and how it fulfills you.
Hello sir, I'm a second year student. I wanted to ask you, like, so you go about your daily work, like, you know, you go around, you see things, right? You observe stuff. So how do you implement that into your animations?
Much the same way that I implemented them in this talk. Much the same way that I implemented them in this talk, right? I had new experiences yesterday, like the Vada Pav shop, like my son's friend, my friend's son. You know, and they were new experiences, and I had not met him for a long time, and not in the context of his baby pictures and all that. I knew he was doing so they're already now part of this creative exercise of talking to you people, right? Tomorrow they may end up in some cartoon. I mean, those two monkeys I've seen enough places. You know, so it's so you observe and you enjoy observing, but you observe without judgment. That is important. You are not to observe saying, hey, these people are like this only, like this only. Not like that. You have to have love for everybody that you observe, because it's a God point. I mean, an animator is God. It's like playing God. So there's nothing there, and you're going to create everything in that Shikari Shambhu animation, from the backgrounds to the way he looks to his expressions and everything, even to his voice. It's all me, right? He wasn't there before, now he's there. So what, did I play God? Yes, maybe I did. You know, was it enjoyable? Yeah, it's fun. So, but then if you want to play God, then you should try and be non-judgmental, because otherwise you're going to ruin society in a big way. Because, yeah, and that's true of anything actually. Hi. सबके माइक पहले बंद नहीं हो जाते हैं. वो काम करने वाला माइक ही देके जाया करो ना दूसरे को.
Sorry, I had it off. Yeah. So my question is something which is very inevitable, which we would like to call maybe for an artist block, a design block. So I mean, when we have a creative process, we essentially want to be immersed in it and take our own time. Some of us may not, but in society, in reality, when we have deadlines, when we have these infamous project submissions, I'm sure everybody in the room can relate to that, no matter what they are interested in.
Yeah.
How do we create that synergy where we are content with our work maybe, or what would your take be on that?
This is a fantastic question, because this is exactly the kind of thing that we must talk about when we start off. Because this is a recurring problem and it never stops, right? There's always never enough time, never enough money also, but almost never enough time for the projects. And in the beginning, when I used to just fight against it, because when you're young, you just fight, like it's a thing to do, right? But it's not a good thing, right? Because I realized sooner rather than later, thank God, that everybody just wants the same thing, right? You may want something in particular, but everybody wants a film done, right? And they may have other things to do also, like unka bachcha exam ke liye padhai nahi kar raha hoga, they have other hassles. some mother-in-law must not be well, or some other people can have any number of issues, right? You must be thinking, no, I have to make the best animation possible. This bear, when he jumps out of this pack, no, he's got to be really soft and squishy, you know. And then he says, yeah, he should be like, wow, you know. And it's like, अरे उसको बाहर निकाल के बस सर वो बस हो जाएगा सर. नहीं बस कैसे होगा? मुझे और 20 ड्राइंग डालने हैं इसमें. कल आओ, you know. So this is a dramatized thing. It's not real, but more or less how we think, you know. ठीक है तो क्या हुआ? हम करेंगे. My solution to that initially was to use my nights. If somebody thought something was going to take 2 days, and I said, no, I can do a much better job if I can get this much more time, then yeah, I have that time. Let me see where I can take it from. So you throw out some other time pass that you might do and focus on that. Also, another thing that happens, subset of this, is that when you're young, you are too dependent on inspiration to strike. You do not have enough tricks up your sleeve to get you started. So you wait for Bhagwan to show up in some form. So if you are waiting for Bhagwan to show up, then be at your table all day long. So that whenever he shows up, you're not sitting at a McDonald's. Okay? Then you can do it fast. And then within time, and it's like, wow, what amazing work, you're so creative, yeah. It's like, no, I was just waiting for Bhagwan. So, but eventually, you need to find a way to make Bhagwan your Sarthi. He should not only show up when आपके वस्त्र खींचे जा रहे हैं तब नहीं आना चाहिए उसने. He should be your Sarthi. He should be with you all the time. So वस्त्र खींचने की situation तक ना पहुंचने के लिए you practice. You become worthy of him driving your chariot. You be the greatest archer there can be. He was not the greatest. There are already people better than him, but he was certainly very sincere. So the least you can do is be sincere. When you are sincere, and you look at everything as Saraswati, as teaching you or whatever, you get better with time and much faster. Okay? I know people that I left behind in that space decades ago, right? They started with me. But unfortunately, that pace is not maintained. That shooting the arrow is not maintained. वो इतने सारे एग्जाम्पल क्यों दिए हुए हैं सब ये स्टोरी में हम लोग देखते हैं वो अच्छा श्री महाभारत कथा अभी वो सब एवरीबडी वांट्स टू डू 6 packs and show that they are Arjun is not 6 packs. Arjun is practice. You know, Arjun is not hair flying in the wind. Arjun is hard work, it's dedication, it's sincerity, it's complete honesty, it's humility. And when he doesn't have humility, he gets crushed also immediately, right? So you pick up those things out of stories also that you read that will inspire you in the right way. Arrogance has no place in our world, right? It never allows us to learn either. You want to learn so that even if you screw up one project, you don't screw up the next one, right? And inevitably, you will always screw up 1 or 2 projects somewhere along the way, okay? I had an almost spotless record, okay? But then I find that maybe not everybody agrees with that, you know? So why they don't agree with it is because I made it a struggle. And they were like, oh, kaise hoga? Oh yeah, it's like that, you know. So I didn't give them a restroom when they wanted it, right? So that's not a good thing to do. You give people their restrooms, give people something to eat, and also that they're happy and relaxed, so that you can focus on your work and understand that this whole journey is one story. It is not, one project is not the end of the story. Though you should treat it as a be-all when you're working on it. But it's not the end of the story. So you should have a clearly defined, if I reach this, it's good. If I reach this, even better. If I reach this, wow. Okay? And that has to be from the perspective of how difficult you're making it for yourself, not for others. Right? So try not, the bottom line should be, I don't want to make this difficult for others. That's the reason why you finish work on time. And as far as creative blocks are concerned, that doesn't leave you. It can always happen, right? But it's how much you prepare for it. Like I said, I can finish that book now if I want, right? But I'm not finishing that book right now because I want to think about it. I want to look it upside down 20 times, right? I want to just keep staring at it like this, like this, like this, like this. And people say, क्या देख रहे हो इतना भाई इसमें? ऐसे आंख करके क्या देख रहे हो? कुछ तो देख रहा हूँ, मुझे भी नहीं मालूम मैं क्या देख रहा हूँ. लेकिन मुझे मिलता है फिर मुझे मजा आता है, right? And I can't call it creative block because at that time I'm busy with other things. So you always you don't pause yourself because you have a creative block. That's another thing I can tell you from my experience. You do other things that help you. And sometimes you do tangential things which don't seem to make sense to other people. यार तेरा इंग्लिश का एग्जाम है तो मराठी क्यों पढ़ रहा है यार? ऐसा भी होता है. नहीं वो ठीक है ना, तब फोकस नहीं हो रहा है, इंग्लिश नहीं समझ में आ रहा तो मराठी पढ़ लिया, आगे वापस इंग्लिश में, इंग्लिश का पेपर अच्छा कर दिया. So you can mind hack in whichever way is convenient for you, because each one's mind is unique. So you can find ways in which, oh, I work like this, I work like that. And of course friends will offer you criticism if their lives are put in danger particularly. So take that criticism well and figure out how to implement it in the next, and break it up into smaller chunks which are achievable. We often try to aim for the ultimate in the first go. That never ever happens. You know, it didn't happen for Sachin Tendulkar, doesn't happen for Zakir Hussain, not happening for you. Okay, so.
Thank you.
So Chetan, we have 5 more questions. Is it okay to continue?
Me is okay.
I'm Alston from 3rd year. So my question was like, if we see in
What did you say your
any
name was?
Alston.
Huh?
Alston.
Alston.
Yeah.
So the action from 3rd year. I said.
No,
Okay.
no. So like with respect to any designing field, like the beginning stage is the really difficult one. So how do you initiate it with respect to animation?
Building stage, you mean production?
The beginning stage.
Beginning stage, oh. Acha. In what sense?
Animation.
Huh.
Like how do you initiate your ideas on paper or canvas? Like there are like different thoughts going into your mind. So like how do you get it together like in the initial stage?
How do you get it together is a very interesting question, because you sort of don't, but you do. When you put it down, it sorts of comes together. If you don't put it down, you never get it together. Okay? So the simplest thing is, okay, I have lots of amazing ideas perhaps, or I have lots of shitty ideas perhaps. Whatever they are, put them down. And more often than not, they will prod you ahead. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. Sometimes maybe in the next project also. But the beginning of any project is to put things down and to, because then you have something to discuss. You know, you can discuss with your friends, with your colleagues, with your seniors, with your professors, with whoever, or I mean, you know, people who are superior to you, maybe your boss or whatever, or your director. But what will you discuss if you don't have anything? So put down whatever it is, however stupid it sounds, because actually emptying your brain is also a great exercise. Because sometimes a lot of the brain's real estate is taken up with stupid shit. Okay? You might as well get it out of the way. फिर पीछे से ऐसे सूर्य देवता निकलेंगे mountain views. Then maybe you know, that idea may come forth, but and also from experience, the ideas only come forth when you're working on them. So when you're putting down the stupid ideas, okay, when you're just engaged in the act of putting down any ideas you have, the good ones will start showing up sooner rather than later. You can't wait for the good ones. They don't come to people who wait. Okay? They don't come to, even वो जो inspiration वाली भी जो बात कही मैंने भगवान की, if you are not sitting at the table and trying to do something, nothing will happen. Bhagwan is not going to help you because you are like sitting at the table also. You have to be present, you have to be working. Then Bhagwan can come. Bhagwan will not come in, God helps those who help themselves, etc., etc. The work only rewards you if you work. So the beginning stage or any stage is a stage where you are putting in the work, and then it starts to unravel in interesting ways, and you can maybe say, oh wow, okay, I didn't think of that. Where did that come from? So that's an exciting stage to get to. But don't get sold on the romance of it. The work is the work. No waiting for the work. You have, whatever is there, put it down. Whatever is there, put it down. Okay, it's done. No, it's nonsense. Fine. Leave it aside. Put down the next thing. Nonsense. Fine. Okay.
Hello sir, my name is Anika. I'm from 3rd year.
Sir, थोड़ा जोर से बोला करो. Be proud of your name and just say it so that like you mean it. Like you want me to hear your name.
Yeah, so my question is, so what is a major element in an animation? Like as practicing architecture, what I feel is when we design structures, we decide what is a key element in our structure, like concept or the shape. So basically in animation, what do you feel is a key element for doing this story or the thing?
for all art form, the from what I found so far, the most important thing you need to think about is the result for the audience. For who are you making this, right? And does it serve their purpose? With वो रस बनेगा कि नहीं? In the Indian theatrical system, not theatre as in movie theatre, there is a Natya Shastra and everything, where they try and explain to you कि जो actor जो होता है, he is only half responsible for creating the mood. The remaining half is coming from the audience. Okay? So if you are not able to create the right mood, the audience is not able to enter. Once the audience enters, then you get more and more into it, and they get more and more into it, and then the art is complete. Okay? So to make people feel is your objective. One of the great animators said, his name is Glenn Keane, he animated Pocahontas, Aladdin. He said, I used to think that animation was about moving drawings. While making Pocahontas, he realized it was about moving people. You know? So what is that? That's exactly what we are saying in the Rasa theory. It's not about making movements on stage. It's about creating that feeling in the audience for what they are watching, or through music or through dance or whatever. It's about creating that relationship with the audience. So in your building, I mean, there are enough buildings with just fancy shapes and all, right? Oh wow, amazing glass facade. Kya dikh raha hai? Main apna muh dekh raha hu. Maybe giants can see their face in it also now. So that is never the reason for something to be done, right? I want to make a film with spaceships. Can't be the reason for making Star Wars. You know, there has to be a greater reason than I want to make a film with spaceships. You know, so that reason has to do with the story usually for films. Why do we want to tell this story? What is interesting about this story? What does it mean for an audience? How does it connect to them? Why is it of any importance to them? Why is it of any value to them? You know, these are all things which come up. So when you find people who make very superficial films and all, you say, ये क्यों बनाया है इसने? इसका क्या मतलब है? ऐसा होता है क्या कभी? कि भाई, what kind of fantasy is this? It's not even a fantasy, because we do like fantastic films. We watch The Lord of the Rings and all. It's fantastic, right? There are no, you know, little people walking around and no elves with pointy ears. But we like all that. There's no Vanars walking around in front of us, though Hanumanji is supposed to be around. Maybe he's here, who knows. But we want those stories because they are telling us something about ourselves and how to live our lives, you know. And unless that is the reason for you doing your stuff, nothing else is. Everything else superficial, and 98% of the time it doesn't work, and the 2% is complete fluke. Like kahin pe kuch like somebody died and people had nothing else to do but watch the film. ऐसा भी होता है. वो blind luck पे कुछ चल जाती है. But that is not the space in which any of us wants to be. So your reason for creating anything is, who are you creating it for? This is when you're creating it for other people. You always tell your story. You don't tell, meaning you can adapt it from some novel or whatever. That's because you want to tell the story. Now, who am I telling the story to, right? Who's putting the money in it? Why are they going to invest money in making this film, right? Because they want to make more money back. So if you will make something that absolutely doesn't appeal to anyone and you're just going to blow up somebody else, you do this on your own money if you want, you know. So there are a lot of considerations. So being sincere with yourself is the first step. Then everything else has to be arranged according to that, and rather arranges itself according to that. But there are enough artists who may not get funded because they have a certain vision, and maybe there is an audience for it, but that sometimes the twain don't meet, and that's destiny karma, blah, blah. That's a different thing. But your question was about what is it that we look for? We look for this. What is the soul of the thing? Why should it exist?
Like the user experience.
Yes, in more technical terms, the user experience. क्या बात है?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, I should just, if I had known, I would have said user experience. ठीक है. Next time. हाँ.
Hello, sir. I'm Mugdha from 5th year. Sir, you've had a lot of creative experiences in your life. Did it ever occur to you that you faced any creative differences with the people you worked with? And if so, how did you tackle that?
Wow. Creative differences, lots of creative differences. They crop up every now and then, and they should, because questioning and analyzing is good. Otherwise, it becomes megalomaniacal. It's like my word. So creative differences are a very interesting space to discover things you've not thought of, right? And you should have that philosophical outlook towards them, otherwise it just becomes an ego tussle. If you don't think of it like that, then it's an ego tussle. It's like, how can he say this? How did he say this in front of so many people? In front of ma'am he said this, yeah. She's so mean, yeah. So, ये सब होता है. Now, sadly, we are never taught how to interact with each other till we actually end up in a job and we suddenly have to interact with people, and our lives and our jobs and our money depends on it. So, ideally we should be taught how to interact with each other, and the ideal place for learning that is a college campus, right? And when you're working together on your projects and all, it's not a one-upmanship thing. You'll have most fun if you're all working together, and differences of opinion are going to happen anyway, right? But they are to be expected, and they should be enjoyed for what it's worth. And of course, you can have a system in place. You said majority wins, blah, 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 all those kind of things. Or if it is somebody's specific project, please everybody give me your ideas, your harshest criticism, but I will decide what to do with it based on what I feel is correct for it at this point in time. And I will give you due reasoning for it. I will not just do it because, nahi, mera man nahi kar raha hai, mani. Not like that. That being self-aware business also comes into this. You work at it. You say, no, that is like such a radically different idea. I was never thinking of it like this. I don't want to do it. But why don't I want to do it? Then you go into that. I don't want to do it because it's too difficult. I don't want to do it because already too much work. I don't want to change all my work now. Blah, blah, blah. There can be any number of reasons, And leaving aside the ego-related reasons, because those are also huge. For most artists working, ego reasons are very huge. And it's a battle that you might as well start waging from now. Because your ego is often your biggest problem. Okay? Nobody else is as big a problem as your ego, because if it's too fragile, it gets hurt every 2 minutes. If it is too strong, it hurts everyone else. So ultimately, people will stop giving you ideas, or people will stop giving you criticism. One of the two things. They will not give you ideas because they is too full of herself. Yeah, I don't want to give her any ideas. Fuck, she just ruins my day. Sorry. Or somebody will say, I'm not going to give him any harsh criticism. Poor thing, look at her, she's gone crying in that corner. She's not come out of her room only for 2 days. So either ways, people stop collaborating with you. So get over yourself, as they say, and find yourself. Because your real self doesn't care. Like they say, that's why all our scriptures and all are like very cool. Because the Atma doesn't give a damn about what's going on with you. वो उसको आनंदमय कोश बोलते हैं. वो अपने आनंद में, तुमको जो करने करो दुनिया में, वो तो आनंद में ही रहने वाला है. और तुम मर जाओगे, उसको और भी आनंद होने वाला है, वो चला जाएगा वापस. है कि नहीं? तो जो आनंद है, उसके तक पहुंचने के लिए, that is actually what I would find, it says that the Krishna, जो उसको सब सारथी बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे ना अभी थोड़ा टाइम पहले, वो है. वो अंदर बैठा है already. But he is not activated. He is sitting and playing his flute and all. Okay? Every now and then you can hear the flute. You think that the God is there somewhere. But you say, where is the God? Right? He says, here, तुम्हारे अंदर है बेटा. नहीं है अंदर मेरे, then कहाँ है? So when you are doing this and when you are removing the clutter, then you are able to not only find it in yourself, you find it in the next person also. जब हम किसी को नमस्ते कहते हैं, we are actually doing that only, we are bowing to the other person like we do to God. तो तेरे अंदर God, मेरे अंदर God, दोनों God बैठ के काम करें, है कि नहीं? लेकिन वो लेवल का मैच्योरिटी हमको मिलता ही नहीं है, because we are taught to compete. We are taught ये फर्स्ट रैंक है, ये सेकंड रैंक है, थर्ड रैंक है, वो उसके बाद के रैंक सब बेवकूफ़ हैं. पेरेंट्स भी परेशान, यार 3 रैंक में नहीं आया मेरा बेटा, इसका क्या वैल्यू, उसको कोई जॉब देगा कि नहीं देगा? देगा ही देगा अगर तुम्हारा काम अच्छा है. I can tell you, I am absolutely unqualified for my job. I have no qualifications, right? The president didn't care, right? So all that matters is the film that I made, right? All that matters is the team that I worked with, the people that I worked with, and what commitment I had to my work. No one cares about whether I went to art school or not, which I didn't, right? I learned all my drawing while working on the job. So it is none of those things. What you're doing in college is not trying to earn a degree, it's trying to learn how to work. You're learning your craft. This is your time to learn your craft, right? And when you do that, then if you're in that space of mind, then differences of opinion are wanted. Differences of opinion are also wanted in the workspace, except where they are ruled by egocentric people, जिसको हम असुरिक tendency बोल सकते हैं, right? So Ravan doesn't want anybody's point of view. You know, everybody else wants point of views because they want to safeguard themselves. It's good for them also. A director wants good point of views because he wants to know what has he not thought of. Because if he takes a call कि नहीं मैं तो ऐसे ही करूँगा और पिक्चर कल फ्लॉप हो गई, नहीं से यार मैंने उसको सुन लेना चाहिए था यार, उसने इतना अच्छा आइडिया दिया था, मैंने सुना ही नहीं, पिक्चर फ्लॉप हो गई, करोड़ों का नुकसान हो गया, right? So it is not in anybody's interest to not listen to ideas, but that culture of being able to share without fear is a little difficult because we have not nurtured ourselves like that. Parents don't nurture children like that, even if they want to. Somehow it doesn't happen because that competitiveness is there since childhood. कि तेरे को ये मार्क्स मिले तो तुझे वो कॉलेज में मिलेगा एडमिशन, फिर तेरे को ये मिला तो तुझे वो शिकरे के पास जॉब मिलेगा, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा, यू नो. So whatever it may be, I mean, you are going to look for, I mean that in the best sense, huh? Guys, like, just because I know his name and you're just using it. I don't know too many architects. So, you know, maybe 10 years ago I would have been saying Hafiz contractor because that's the only guy I knew at that time. So, you know, so it's always like means to an end. It's not a means to an end. It is what we are saying, the creative life. That is what it is. If you do it as the creative life, then you have no problems, you know, and you may feel bad because you want to protect yourself. You don't, no one wants to just, you know, allow people to kick them in, you know, whichever way. But agar tumko kushti mein aage jana hai, to you'll have to spar, right? So this is a kushti of the mind, this exchange of ideas and opinions. And if we can all get into the habit of it, as we progress further, it will become complete second nature to us. We also learned this the hard way, you know, because we were also not brought up like that. It was competitive. It was, in my case, not because of my parents, but because of the, like from my parents' side, the only thing that my mother, I think, ever drilled into my head is just try and be as good as you can at it. So don't embarrass me, in other words. Okay, so do whatever you want, don't embarrass me. So she didn't say don't embarrass me, just said be good at what you do. But in the workspace, you saw that there are people who manipulate, there are people who want to protect their little jagir, ye sab hota hai, you know, especially people who become stagnant. Then why do those poor people become stagnant? Because they're not taking ideas, otherwise they would grow. They have a respect for being ahead in the line, but they don't keep that respect. They become manipulative and then you start hating them. You say, I'll bring you down, then it becomes all of that shit, right? So to avoid all of that, your own thing is that you are living the creative life. Everybody, even the person that's trying to put you down because he's trying to protect his life, as he thinks, is a learning experience for you. Let him put you down. How long will he put you down? This has happened to me. People have tried to put me down because I was a little kid. No. You say, etc., x, y, x, y, etc., x, y, z. Pata nahi kya samajhta apne aap. You know. So, but I was like, what can I do about this? I mean, he's 25 years older than me. I mean, obviously, this is, you know, we can't like spat it out. Or like, so it's the work. You let your work speak for itself and you go on and have a glorious career. And then, you know, they fall by the wayside at some point in time and they look up to you and they say, "Tune bahut acha kaam kiya hai." You know. So, you don't want to fight with them. There's no point. You work, you do your creative life thing, which is really an inclusive thing, which is really a compassionate thing, which is an amazing thing. You be Krishna. That is the thing to do. You do Ras with yourself. So, then difference of opinion तो चाहिए ना. सब exactly एक ही time पे थोड़ी हिलेंगे तो मज़ा थोड़ी आएगा रास में. सब अलग अलग गोल गोल हिलेंगे तो मज़ा आएगा ना. वैसा.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, sir.
हाँ.
So I have one question. How do you balance your creative mind with professional lifestyle?
Wow, So with your non-creative mind, I thought, how do you balance your creative mind with your non-creative? No, it's the same, no? I mean, in my case, if you mean in terms of deadline and stuff, then that's what I've been trying to put
No,
forward.
like the lectures, or as you are a director or a producer, so you have to go to events, and like the creative mind or the creative part of yourself is very different with the professional. So how do you balance those two parts?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. I do it with a mild sense of annoyance. Okay, but when I'm out of, like, it takes me a lot to get myself out of the studio or out of my work. But once I'm out of there, then I'm fine. So it's like, then it's fine. So it, you know, like I was working till 6 in the morning today, right? So ideally I want to sleep, right? But I had to come here, and I had made a commitment to come here, and I want to chat with you all. And so alarm laga ke ut gaya main. Now I'm not at the stage where I get annoyed with it. I mean, I don't think that I got annoyed to come here. No. But that's the balance. I mean, so I've slept a little less. That's okay. I'll catch up on sleep, or sleep will catch up with me one way or the other. We have a strange relationship going back to my childhood. So it balances itself. I mean, I'm a Libran, so I really don't know how anything balances anything. I keep trying to balance. And I try to err on the side of my creative life rather than the other. In fact, one of the reasons I did not get sucked into Bollywood is exactly that. I mean, Bollywood is a lovely place and lovely people, beautiful people. It's just one good thing after the other. But you can't sit in a sweet shop all day long. Na? Kya khaoge kya bhai? Pura din to mithai nahi kha sakte. So I actively rejected being in that space, right? Because I didn't want to. I can easily flow in that place, and everybody loves me, blah blah blah, and everybody's got lots of uses for me also, right? So as long as you're useful, everybody loves you, and I'm by and large quite likable. So I can keep going further and further down that road, have like a few actresses that I know very well, etc., etc. But no, hang on, where is it going? This is not where I want to go, This is crazy stuff. And I have seen what happens. And you see, when you are alert, when you observe, then you can often save yourself a lot of headache. अगर तुम देखो ना इसके साथ ऐसा हुआ भाई, ऐसे होता है, जरा ध्यान से रहो. So then you can be a little more alert about what is going to happen in your own life. A lot of times people just like swing into things, like it's very easy, because I'm giving you like a most blatant example. Like Bollywood is a beautiful example of it, because it's such an amazing world in itself. There's so much creative work happening, and so many people exchanging ideas, and so many talented, beautiful people doing it, that you will lose yourself in 2 seconds. So, I mean, I would have been acting in films, like if I had let myself. So, no, hang on. I want to make animation. So, of course it goes against saying be all you can be, because why not? You can be. Yes, true. And maybe I chose to err on the safer side for my sake. Maybe I could have been that and been this also. But at that point, that was a choice I made, because I said, I don't think I can handle this. And I will completely lose this. And that's, I don't want to lose. Right? So, if you have to err, then you err on the side of your creative life rather than erring on the side of your professional life. Because the professional life is very fickle. Okay, because it can, like I was telling her, there can be any number of reasons why things may or may not work. But what will certainly work for you is if your Sarthi is Krishna. है ना? फिर तो मज़े ही है ना? खुश रहोगे ना, मस्त रहोगे, आनंद में रहो. वही है. So that is your, and it's a lifelong thing. I don't know whether there will ever be a clear answer to how to find the balance, because each one of you is unique. And your challenges will be unique, your temptations may be unique, right? हर आदमी को जीसस की तरह वो शैतान नीचे फेंकने को नहीं आता है. Everybody has different temptations. So it's really balancing that, how much Cadbury's how many Cadbury's do I want to eat, whether I don't want to work out. That.
Thank you, sir. I got it. Thank you.
Sorry, some of my answers are a little long-winded because I have to also find them. So,
Hello, sir. I'm Atharav Gogaole from 4th year. So my question to you is that since the beginning, there is a decided form of how God appears to be. So
God?
Yeah.
Oh, so Adhyatma ka question hai. Achha. Better get prepared.
So how do you try to create something different or unique in your animated series than
okay.
the other
हाँ,
ones?
okay. Art and craft question है. ठीक है, ठीक है. ठीक है. So in my particular experience when doing Tripura, for example, Lord Shiva is depicted in 10,000 ways already, right? I have to look at all the necessary requirements of that project. It's a project commissioned by Cartoon Network and Amar Chitrakatha. It is based on the Puranas. Okay, the story is in several Puranas, told very, very differently. So this is what we know. Lord Shiva has always been depicted in one form or the other, and there are a lot of depictions of Lord Shiva, whether in cave sculpture, whether in painting, whether in modern art, whether in Raja Ravi Verma, whether in comics, and you look at everything. Okay, and you with the story material you try and form, and then of course your own sensitivity. What is to you Lord Shiva? अब जब मैं बड़ा छोटा था ना तो very mysteriously I used to महाशिवरात्रि के दिन I used to make a little कैलाश पर्वत with one क्या कहते हैं उसको पत्रे का टुकड़ा and one towel. Okay, और उस पर मैं वो शिव जी का छोटा फोटो काट के लगाता था. वो we used to get in 10 paisa, we used to get like 4 photos of gods or movie stars, like whichever you wanted. So we had collections of all things. So तो शिव जी को काट के उसके ऊपर बिठाता था मैं. So there is, and then my mother, and this was probably because my mother had brought me a comic, Amar Chitrakatha comic called Elephanta. Okay, so she was a school teacher, so they went to Elephanta caves, and from there she got me a comic, and I was what, about 2.5, 3 years old or something. So obviously I can't read it. So I'm looking at those pictures, and obviously Lord Shiva is always cool, and so he made some space in my head, and so that was my first comic. And my first visual sense. Otherwise तो वो टाइल वाइल पे तो लगे होते हैं और फोटोज में भी लगे होते हैं, लेकिन वो पर्सनल नहीं होता है. You are not seeing him in action. In the comic, you are suddenly seeing him in action. You are seeing अरे उसकी आँख, उनकी आँख बंद कर दी, उनकी तीसरी आँख खुल गई और उसकी वजह से ये हो गया, उसके बाद वो हो गया और ऐसा हो गया. तो you suddenly becomes more alive. So that I suppose resulted in that. Of course my parents always scratch their head and say ये इसको किसने सिखाया? So किसने नहीं सिखाया, वो हो गया अपने आप. It was meant to happen, so it happened. And suppose it is the expression of the creative life, so to speak, at that point in time. Okay, I like this, and this is where he sits. Oh, and today is Mahashivratri, so today is supposed to be a special day for us. So I'm going to make like, okay, I'm going to make him sit and I'm going to watch him. So something like that may have prompted it. I'm just trying a vague post-analysis of it, which I've never done, so I'm doing it for the first time. But, so there is a form which is dear to you also. And he must be that. If he's not that, then you have no connection with him. He can't be all sorts of other things and not what you feel for. So all of these things together, you start making. Whose phone is this? Whose phone is this? Who is Aparna calling me? Why? Okay. It's Aparna aka Silky. I said, who's Aparna aka Silky? Why is she calling me? So anyway, glad that was not mine. Yeah, so it's all the serious research. Okay, I'm making it for Amar Chitrakatha, right? So they already have a notion of what Shiva looks like in their comics. Cartoon Network has no real sensibility of its own. So it is looking at Amar Chitrakatha and is looking at whatever I draw. So they are not an issue in this case unless they say no, which didn't happen, so it's okay. So as long as I was true to the sources and of course I like Amar Chitrakatha also, right? So because my first comic was, so because I like those two things, I'm able to bring them together in a non-violent way, right? And I studied all the sculpture, this, that. I spoke to archaeologists and all that also about the depiction of Shiva, blah, 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 everything. And then story ke paryapt, based on what my sense of Shiva was, I designed it. And that everybody liked. So it's all these things. But one interesting thing that came up in the research of this film is that when I was talking to this archaeologist, he's a guy called Suraj Pandit, Dr. Suraj Pandit, and you may come across his work if you ever have to deal with the Kanheri caves and so on and so forth. So he's an expert on that. And he helped me with a lot of research into all the different Puranas and everything, because वो Sanskrit जानते हैं अच्छी तरह से. So in discussing with him, I realized that a lot of these stories, see, we know that stories are metaphorical, blah, 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 but actually it's a story for the battle for you. You know, you can have a moment where the Devas have won, you can have a moment where the Asuras have won, right? So you can now quickly interpolate this in your life and every moment of your life, right? So it's really that. So moment you start looking at that, the characters become more and more defined for you. It's no longer about, oh, you know, at that time there used to be a lot of noise about racial depiction in Amar Chitrakatha. And they were very sensitive to that because a lot of people were criticizing them. वो आपके comics में कभी भी वो राक्षस काले होते हैं, ये होते हैं, वो होते हैं. So are you drawing Dravidians? ऐसा सब scene था कि subconsciously you are creating racist situation. I never felt that when I was reading the comics. Like I had South Indian friends, North Indian friends. I never felt that वो South Indian लोग राक्षस हैं. ये क्या मतलब है? हैं कि African लोग बंदर हैं? ये थोड़ी होता है. You know, that's that's stupidity. That is an uneducated mind that is making those assumptions and then saying that, oh yeah, this is why you did. No, they didn't think like that. They at least mostly from what I know. They may have also. I can't speak for them. But that's not the impression that came to me as an audience of young children reading the book, that these are racial depictions. It was a depiction of किसी का जो अंतर है वो बाहर में आ गया उनके ऐसे. But that, yes, in our world is a problem, right? Because then you start differentiating against people who don't look beautiful, you know? Is it, if he looks like this, he must be highly... Like, so villains used to have those moles and all. Now, what if you have a mole, yaar? You're stuck, na? Meaning, कोई तुमको प्यार की नज़र से देखेगा ही नहीं. You will be perpetually a rapist in everybody's eyes, na? So, you have to then go for surgical intervention immediately as soon as you can afford it. So, these are depictions and you have to be sensitive and aware of what you're creating with it. So we then took our own license. We said, there is nothing to say that the Asuras were dark skinned. They are the cousins, so to speak, of the Devas. So why they can be as beautiful as the Devas, there's no problem. It's their mind which is a problem. You see, it's how they think that drives them crazy. And we made God, like Abhi Indra hai, he's a leader of the gods, but he's also the god of thunder, and so he can be dark. He's thundercloud. So let's make him dark. Because the nobility of a person is not in their color, na? It is in how they behave and what. So you have to be very careful of what words you put in their mouth. You have to be very careful about how the characters express themselves and how they justify themselves, because you're not just looking at the story, you're also looking at your current context and how it will be perceived today. So it's a bit of a game. But if you are sort of balanced, then you can sort of balance the whole deal. And then you have to make a good film of it somehow. So that's a whole different problem. But you were only asking about depiction, so I will stop the answer at that. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Acha, questions khatam, I'm still standing. ठीक है. Wow.
For this enriching experience and for engaging with the students so enthusiastically. Now we request our principal, Professor Alka Tavri ma'am, to kindly present Mr. Chetan Sharma with a token of appreciation.
I mean, I have no idea what you all came expecting to this particular talk today. So I hope that it satisfied some little bit of something for each one of you in some way. Wow, I'm getting books. Alright, now you all can go and eat. Thank you all for coming and for staying. And yeah, and if you still have any questions, I'm here for a few minutes more. In case you all didn't get a slot at the...
we would now like to call upon Professor Rashmi Pukotil to give the vote of thanks.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, sir, for giving your valuable time and being a part of Samvad Shrinkala. It was indeed a very engaging, interesting, exciting, and animated talk. We would also like to take this opportunity to thank our management for being ever supportive in all our endeavors and initiatives. Our principal man, Professor Alka Tiwari, for conceptualizing the platform of Samvad Shrinkala and engaging us all in such a wide array of topics in connection with architecture and beyond. A big thank you to the faculty team, student volunteers, and staff who have enthusiastically worked towards bringing this concept to reality. And lastly, we thank our audience for their presence and active participation. See you all tomorrow as the Samvad continues with our guest speaker, Mr. Ravish Jaiswal, on the topic, Theatre, a Blessing in Disguise. Thank you.